Need assistance? Our ushers are here to help. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the SOT app. We are delighted to have you with us today for a big conversation. Learner-centered pedagogy to build impactful online learning experiences. I now invite Ms. Manor Hayat to join us on stage.
और हमारी जनरेशन के लिए particularly this revolution is happening online. So imagine that somebody from KPK taking a course with a working professional in Karachi, or somebody from a remote area in Balochistan taking a course on project management online, essentially envisioning a space where technology is not a replacement of teachers, rather technology acts like a multiplier of the teacher's reach. So keeping that in mind, in an era where boundaries of learning and possibility are constantly re-evolving, we're here to explore an important conversation today that how Pakistan can adopt future learning models that take online learning from proof of concept to scale. And at the heart of this vision, we have a reality, a prototype of LUMSX. Before I introduce the panelists, I'd like to tell a little bit about what LUMSX is. So LUMSX is a center of online learning and professional development at LUMS, where we take LUMS' best teaching practices and research practices beyond the campus wall through innovative pedagogy. And we offer massive open online courses, MOOC courses, we offer online cohort-based courses as well. And today we have this incredible team, the architects of LUMSX, jinko I'll shortly introduce. In the last couple of years, we were successful in taking it from a prototype project towards purposeful expansion. और आगे जाके हम इसको देखेंगे कि ये journey कैसी रही, इसके क्या challenges थे, how does this journey sort of evolved, and how you all can benefit in the larger scheme of digital landscape in Pakistan. So let's welcome our panelists. So first off, we have Jazib Zahir. Jazib is the director of LUMSX and director of LUMS Center for Entrepreneurship. He was also the CEO of one of the largest leading software houses in Pakistan, and has a graduate degree from Harvard and an undergrad degree from Stanford. Jazib is somebody who brings entrepreneurial agility and academic purpose, so we're very excited to hear from Jazib. Then we also have with us Dr. Suleiman Shahid. Dr. Suleiman is the founding faculty director of LUMSX, and he is an associate professor of computer science at LUMSX. Dr. Suleiman is also someone who is the director of Chisel Lab, which is the computer-human interaction for inclusion, well-being, and learning, which develops inclusive technologies to support learning and mental health. काफ़ी हमें मज़े की बातें सुनने को मिलेंगी डॉक्टर सुलेमान से. Then we have Khizr Tehseen. Khizr is the head of operations at LUMSX. He's the engine behind our growth, business development, and partnerships. He also played an important role at the Center of Continuing Education Studies before joining LUMS at LUMS. Last but not the least, we have Faryal Siddiqui, who's leading our learning experience design team at LUMSX. She's the one who ensures that learning is impactful, innovative. She's also a Fulbright scholar from Columbia University and has led massive curriculum innovation for underprivileged communities for Citizens Foundations as well. So thank you everybody for being here with us today. Let's begin the conversation. We know that in the last few years, online learning has sort of become a necessity. We saw it happening in COVID-19. We see it unfolding in classroom, in pilot settings, and we know that learners are ready for more. So perhaps the conversation today has transitioned more from proof of concept to scale. So how do we build systems? How do we build trust and capacity around it? इस digital landscape का जो एक labyrinth है, इसको किस तरह हमने tackle करना है essentially. And for that, I'd like all of the panelists to share with us कि उनकी क्या aspirations हैं, what drives them, what is their hope for digital learning experiences, क्या challenges हैं, essentially जो कहते हैं ना कि North Star क्या है when it comes to digital landscape experiences. So we'll start off with Faral. We'd like to hear from you, what do you think when it comes to digital landscape experiences?
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Manu. That was really nice and warm. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's really nice to be here, and thank you for attending. So, as somebody who joined LUMSEX 3 years ago, and it was a team that was formed by Dr. Suleiman, and I've had a long journey here. And I was also a former skeptic of the digital learning experience itself. I can now say with a lot of confidence that keeping in mind the learning crisis of the country, we have to come to the table and sort of entertain this as an idea that in terms of a solution-oriented and a more innovative mindset, because uski baghair, I don't think हम conventional तरीके से पाकिस्तान की learning और teaching crisis को resolve कर सकेंगे. So it becomes important to entertain it as a very viable solution to improve the education inequalities in the country. Also, adding on to that, educational inequalities अगर tech सही तरीके से नहीं use होती तो exacerbate भी हो सकती हैं. So keeping in mind that when you talk about digital learning, online learning, it's also very important to have a purposeful design or purposeful learning in mind. And think of tech and digital learning in a very learning design and informed oriented way to make sure that we don't reinforce educational inequalities, but we actually transform and enhance learning as we go along.
Thank you, Faral, for sharing that with us. इस पे हम further conversation करेंगे as we proceed. Now I'd like to hear from Dr. Suleiman. Dr. Suleiman, you're the founding director of something जो कि हमने prototype भी किया when it comes to online learning. We'd like to hear from you, as an opening statement, some initial thoughts. How do you foresee the digital learning landscape in Pakistan?
Thank you, Manu. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Great to be here. देखिए जब हमने मैं बहुत अरसा से इस बात पे तो कन्विंस्ड हूँ कि पाकिस्तान के अंदर अगर आप एजुकेशन लैंडस्केप को देखें तो आपको 3 से 4 चैलेंजेस हमेशा नज़र आते हैं. एक आपका एक्विटी का मसला है, अच्छी तालीम लोगों के लिए अवेलेबल ही नहीं है. आपके पास एक्सेसिबिलिटी का मसला है. उसके ऊपर सबसे बड़ा जो प्रॉब्लम है कि बच्चा स्कूल जा रहा है और उसके बाद जो पढ़ के आ रहा है वो किसी काबिल नहीं है. राइट, क्वालिटी का मसला है. एक्सेसिबिलिटी है, एक्विटी है, क्वालिटी है. अगर आप पाकिस्तान के टॉप 2% को निकाल दें इवन हायर एजुकेशन के अंदर भी, तो बाकी जो बचता है, आप अक्सर लोग यही कहते हैं कि हमारे 20,000 ग्रेजुएट्स हैं, 15,000 एम्प्लॉयबल नहीं है. तो एक बहुत बड़ा मसला है. एक तो ये कि जहाँ तक तालीम पहुँचनी चाहिए वो पहुँच नहीं सक रही, और जहाँ पहुँच रही है उसकी क्वालिटी इतनी अच्छी नहीं है. बट देन वी ऑल्सो नो कि हमारे पास कुछ रॉक स्टार्स हैं, हमारे पास कुछ अमेजिंग टीचर्स हैं, हमारे पास कुछ सेंटर्स ऑफ एक्सीलेंस हैं जो कि बहुत अच्छा पढ़ा भी सकते हैं और वो नॉलेज को डिसेमिनेट भी कर सकते हैं. तो प्रॉब्लम ये है कि वो लोग जो बहुत अच्छा काम कर सकते हैं उनका काम वहाँ तक क्यों नहीं पहुँच रहा जहाँ तक उनको पहुँचना चाहिए. अब प्रॉब्लम आती है आपकी फिजिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की कि एक बंदा सुलेमान एक वक्त में एक जगह पे ही हो सकता है. But when you convert that into a digital form in a very meaningful way, then you can actually make sure that Suleiman is available for thousands of kids all over Pakistan. Right? How would you make that happen is a very challenging thing to do. और इसको करना आसान नहीं है. So उसके लिए हमारा विजन ये था LUMSEX के अंदर कि आपने एक्सेस और एक्विटी के साथ साथ आपने क्वालिटी पे कभी कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ नहीं करना और उसको मेक श्योर करना है कि बच्चों तक अच्छी चीज़ पहुँच सके. इस फ्रेमवर्क के अंदर अगर आप देखें हमारे पास 3 से 4 इंपॉर्टेंट स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं. एक आपके पास स्टूडेंट्स हैं, एक आपके पास टीचर्स हैं, एक आपके पास पेरेंट्स हैं और एक आपके पास इंस्टीट्यूशन वो इदारा है. हर एक की अपनी अपनी लिमिटेशन है. स्टूडेंट पढ़ना नहीं चाहते हैं, पेरेंट्स के पास टाइम नहीं है, टीचर के पास क्लास के अलावा 1000 काम और करने को हैं और इदारे ने बहुत ज़्यादा पैसा कमाना है. राइट और इन सब चीज़ों को जब लेके चलते हैं सो चैलेंज इज़ एक्सट्रीमली हार्ड कि आप उसे फिक्स कैसे करेंगे. सो आई थिंक आपने जब स्केल की बात करते हैं, जब आप बात करते हैं कि आप इस प्रॉब्लम कैसे सॉल्व कर सकते हैं, आई थिंक ऑनलाइन लर्निंग बिकम्स अ वेरी गुड पार्टनर और सिस्टम थ्रू विच आप स्टूडेंट्स को सेंटर में लेके आएँ, ऑनलाइन लर्निंग कैन सपोर्ट देम. आप टीचर ट्रेनिंग को लेके आएँ, ऑनलाइन लर्निंग कैन सपोर्ट देम. आप पेरेंट्स की एजुकेशन पे लेके आएँ, ऑनलाइन लर्निंग कैन सपोर्ट देम. इंस्टीट्यूशन की अपनी कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग को लेके आएँ, ऑनलाइन लर्निंग कैन सपोर्ट. वी कैन टॉक अबाउट इट एंड अनपैक इट, बट मेरा विजन हमेशा से ये रहा है कि एक्सेसिबिलिटी, क्वालिटी बट ऑल्सो मेकिंग श्योर कि 4 लोग, ये 4 जो आपके पास ऑब्जेक्ट्स ऑफ इंटरेस्ट हैं उन पे काम किया जा सके.
Thank you, Dr. Suleiman, for sharing that with us. We'll further, unpack as we proceed in the conversation. Now, I'd like to add Jazib in the mix. Jazib, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mahnur. So, to help you understand where my North Star comes from with regards to online learning, I'm going to share with you one of my moments of epiphany in life. It goes back to the year 2011, 2012 ki range mein. I was doing my typical engineering manager, somewhat of an entrepreneur sort of role in a tech company. One day my papa, who was the O-levels coordinator for LGS Georgetown, she handed me this book, which the principal had given every teacher in the school. And that is the book I recommend to everyone in my life. Ye book aap padh lein, it'll change your life. The book is The One World Schoolhouse by Salman Khan of Khan Academy. At that point, I knew Salman Khan, I knew Khan Academy, like, I didn't know he'd written this book. It's an amazing book. You can read it in one sitting. It is so readable. It's only about 100 pages. The things he says, the way he talks about the problems in education, you don't need to split up education into so many different subjects. You need to emphasize how they're connected. And kids learn better at their own pace. Those were things that resonated with me. Those were things I understood. Those were things I agreed with. But I had not been able to articulate them quite the same way myself. So when I read the way he explained कि education में क्या मसले हैं and why the solution could be technology and why the solution could be online learning, that light bulb went off in my head. Okay, here's a guy who studied engineering like me. Here's a guy who's been to business school like me, and he is actually trying to solve problems in education. And that is the point in my life I completely changed direction. Gradually, I started working more in education, edtech, teaching, and many years later, I would say if you ask me for one word to describe my multifaceted career at the moment, that word really is education. All that inspiration came from there. Because of that book, I realized that there is space in fixing learning, in solving the broken education system for people with an engineering and business background. And that's how I feel about online learning today. Proof of concept ho gaya. Educationists ne show kar diya hai ke this can produce learning outcomes. Now is the time to make it bigger, to scale it, to iterate upon it, and for that you need people with an engineering and business mindset. So that is my North Star, my inspiration, someone coming from engineering and business into education, that online learning is a problem that can be solved with Silicon Valley style thinking, with engineering style thinking, and I think this is the right moment to do it, and that's why I'm so excited about it.
Thank you, Jazib, for unpacking the title of today's conversation with us. Now, Khizr, if you'd like to share your North Star.
Sure. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining the Art Discourse here. So, Manur, I'd like to start with sort of stating a belief that we hold very strongly at LUMSX. And this is a personal belief as well. And I've come to this conclusion after over a decade of experience in professional learning and development and continuing education initiatives. So, I've been involved with LUMS for over a decade in implementing these initiatives, taking that strategy and vision and then implementing them as a operations lead or head. So the conclusion that I've come to and we believe in is that online and blended learning is no longer just an alternative. It is very much the future or the tomorrow, apt for this event, of education, professional learning and development. But, here is that challenge, or rather an opportunity if we see it like that how do we scale this up, like Jazib said, like Dr. Salman said, how do we scale this while maintaining trust, while maintaining equitable access, quality assurance, and very importantly, financial sustainability. How do we all do all of that? And this is something that we'll be touching upon in this panel.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing your opening thoughts. Now, let's take with all these perspectives, different angles in mind, let's take the conversation a bit forward. थोड़ा सा हम scale को unpack करते हैं and Jazib की तरफ चलते हैं कि Jazib, when we think about scale, we think about outreach, numbers. Is there something more to scale? And what do you think are some of the challenges or mistakes institutions make when they try to grow digital learning?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct that right now is the right time to focus on scale. There are lots of ways to think about scale. In the technology sector, we think about scale as a multiplicative force, that we can take something that's already proven to work, some prototype, we can scale it up to benefit a lot of people without putting a lot of resources into it. The outcome is a multiple of the input. And that is the point at which online learning is right now. For online learning, even without looking at the finances, which is important in its own way, but right now primarily we're looking at the numbers. Something like LUMSX is already quite proud of the fact that we are reaching maybe something like 10,000 people. Having any product, any digital product, reaching that many people is amazing, especially in a particularly competitive market like Pakistan. But there's such a long way to go. You know how many millions of people we have in Pakistan. Why do we have to stop at Pakistan? If you have an online learning platform producing quality content, it can go anywhere. So scale is primarily the numbers, but when you unpack the numbers, it's also about who you reach. If you think about it, who is an online learning platform for? It's in some ways for the people who are already excellent but want to upskill further, because we all agree you can't survive today without upskilling. At the same time, there are people who need to be reached. You know, Mahnoor gave you that example that there's somebody sitting in a power plant in Balochistan studying project management. When you meet people like that, you realize that online learning is the way to reach them. You might all be familiar with Harvard's course CS50. What is special about CS50 is not just that it's online, but it's actually being used as the institutional course at places like Yale and Oxford. We at LUMS are doing similar stuff to that. The whole thinking behind LUMSX and any other online platform is that you can take these centers of excellence, you can multiply them across the country. That's why any plan made in online learning needs to be focused on this idea of scale. If you're not thinking about scaling, the most important part of online learning is in some ways missing. Yes, it matters about pedagogy. Yes, it matters about quality. Yes, it matters about technology. Yes, it matters about outreach. Yes, it matters about assessments. But ultimately, the success of online learning will be measured by how many people you reach. And online learning is primed to be that way to reach the many people. When you talk to anyone in education, पहली बात वो यही करेंगे, education emergency. इतने millions of kids out of school. Education emergency के इतने लोग पढ़े हुए हैं लेकिन employee नहीं होते. How do we fix that problem? We can't fix it physically, we can't fix it in person. None of the big solutions today are about physical and in person. Every digital transformation has that online component as a way to reach people, to reach scale. That is what we're trying to do at LUMSX. That is what we're trying to do with online learning in general. And I really think this is the right moment in time to accept that and think about the best way to implement that, which is why I keep emphasizing it's not just an education problem anymore. It's a technology problem. It's a management problem. It's a design problem. It's a policy problem. Let's bring all these people together. This is one of the newest cutting edge industries to work in. And one of the many ways its success will be measured is primarily by scale.
So thank you, Joseph, for enriching and unpacking what scale could potentially look like. अभी सारी conversations से हमें पता चला कि अभी हम कहाँ खड़े हैं in terms of LUMSX being an example of it. But हर story कहीं से शुरू होती है, चीज़ें vacuum में नहीं होती. And I'd like us to take a step forward. Story का आगाज़ कहाँ से हुआ और डॉक्टर सुलेमान की तरफ चलते हैं कि डॉक्टर साहब जब आपने LUMSX शुरू किया as a founding director, so टेक्नोलॉजी और ऑनलाइन लर्निंग मेन स्ट्रीम इतनी नहीं हुई थी पाकिस्तान में. टेक्नोलॉजिकल चैलेंज वाज वन बैरियर, बट ट्रस्ट अराउंड इट वाज अनदर बिगर इशू. सो इन टर्म्स ऑफ व्हाट वाज द व्हाई बिहाइंड LUMSX, आपने इंस्टीट्यूशनल चैलेंजेस को इन टर्म्स ऑफ गवर्नेंस एंड टेकिंग स्टेक होल्डर्स ऑन बोर्ड दैट दिस फॉर्म ऑफ डिजिटल लर्निंग कैन बी एज क्रेडिबल एंड एज ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव इफ इट इज़ मेड करेक्टली. उस पर कैसे आपने सबको अलाइन किया? Would you like to share that with us?
जी, थैंक यू. आई थिंक LUMSX मैं अक्सर कहा करता हूँ कि इज़ द मोस्ट डिफिकल्ट प्रोजेक्ट आई एवर डिड इन माई लाइफ, और मुझे लगता नहीं दोबारा इतना मुश्किल प्रोजेक्ट मैं पकड़ने की कोशिश करूँगा. उसकी 2-3 वजह हैं. आई थिंक जाजिब ने बहुत आई शेयर द सेम विजन कि इट्स वी नीड टू थिंक अबाउट स्केल, बट ऑल्सो द फाउंडेशन. जब स्टार्ट करते किसी चीज़ की, यू आर थिंकिंग अबाउट स्केल बट यू नॉट थिंकिंग अबाउट स्केल. You're thinking some very basic things right. और सब very basic things right के अंदर आपके पास आता है सबसे important चीज़ ये है, आप ये काम क्यों करना चाहते हैं, आपका विजन क्या है, आपका मिशन क्या है, आप किस तरह आगे चलना चाहते हैं. अगर वो चीज़ क्लैरिटी ना हो, आपके पास आपका नॉर्थ स्टार क्लियर ना हो, सो आई थिंक एनी स्केल वुड वर्क, बिकॉज एंड देन एनी स्केल वुड वर्क, इसका मतलब ये सही स्केल काम नहीं करेगा. सो आई थिंक अर्ली डेज के अंदर हमारे 2 से 3 जो सबसे बड़े चैलेंजेस थे, वो एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी था. हम नया जूम के बाद, ये नया कोविड ख़त्म हुआ था और लोगों को लगता था ऑनलाइन लर्निंग का मतलब ये है कि आप जूम पे चले जाते हैं, वहाँ एक बंदा आता है जिसका दिल नहीं करता पढ़ाने का, और बहुत से लोग बैठे होते हैं जिनका दिल नहीं करता पढ़ने का, और ये ऑनलाइन लर्निंग होती है. उस ऑनलाइन लर्निंग को आपने उससे डिस्कनेक्ट करके एक नई ऑनलाइन लर्निंग की डेफिनेशन देना है, जिसके अंदर ये कि जो पढ़ाने वाला उसका बहुत दिल कर रहा है, पढ़ने वाला मोटिवेटेड है, कंटेंट क्वालिटी का है, उसकी प्रोडक्शन क्वालिटी की है, प्लेटफॉर्म क्वालिटी का है, और उसके बाद जो आप सीखेंगे वो आप रियल वर्ल्ड में अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. इससे आपको नौकरी मिल सकती है, इससे आपकी तरक्की हो सकती है, इसे आप अपने CV पे खुशी से डाल सकते हैं, आप फख्र से कह सकते हैं कि यार मैंने LUMSX का कोर्स किया। सो देयर वाज अ विजन ऑन आवर माइंड कि ये सिर्फ जूम की क्लास नहीं है, ये आपने जूम की क्लास से डिस्कनेक्ट करके एक नई डेफिनेशन ऑफ ऑनलाइन लर्निंग पाकिस्तान में इजाद करनी है। बिकॉज जिससे बात करते थे, आप जैसे टीचर्स ने हमारे थाउजेंड्स ऑफ टीचर्स ने हमारे कोर्सेज लिए हैं, शायद किसी ने यहाँ बैठी हैं उन्होंने भी लिया हो हमारा कोई कोर्स। सो वो क्या कहती थी शुरू के अंदर कि जी हमें बिल्कुल मज़ा नहीं आता, हमें इंटरेक्शन नहीं मिलती, कंटेंट अच्छा नहीं है, सब कुछ अच्छा नहीं है। आई थिंक द फर्स्ट थिंग हम जिसमें हमने कभी कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ नहीं किया आज के दिन तक LUMSX के अंदर, वो ये कि हमने कभी भी जल्दी के अंदर क्वालिटी पे कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ नहीं किया। We have spent time on prediction, we have spent time on pre-prediction, quality assurance, Faryal will talk about it. Quality कभी हमने compromise नहीं किया। And I think जो बहुत बड़ी hurdle हमारे पास आती थी पहले साल के अंदर, we had no learners. लोगों हम कहते थे हमारा कोर्स ले, वो कहते थे इसका फ़ायदा क्या होगा? आप टीचर्स कहते थे कोर्स ले, वो कहते थे स्कूल में उसकी बात नहीं सुनेगा। And now we have alhamdulillah, अगर आप देखें cohort after cohort, we have students coming in, and उसकी वजह क्या है? उसकी वजह ये है कि our North Star was very, very clear. Never ever compromise on the quality वाला part, उस पर नहीं करना। And the scale kills quality in the breakfast, in the lunch, and in the dinner also, you know, and you have to make sure कि while scaling आप दोबारा वो ना बन जाए जो आप 50 अपने कैंपस कैसे ओपन जैसे आप करते हैं, you know, and you have second campus, you're doing a fine job, third campus, fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th, and कहते हैं oh my goodness, अब ये हमसे बर्दाश्त नहीं हो रहा। So I think सेम इन दिस केस, आपके पास यहाँ स्केल में क्वालिटी कंट्रोल करना निस्बतन आसान है, वहाँ पे फिजिकल कंट्रोल करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है, बिकॉज लेकिन ऑनलाइन के अंदर स्केल में क्वालिटी कंट्रोल करना बहुत मुश्किल है। बट आई थिंक मैं बार बार क्वालिटी इसलिए कह रहा हूँ क्योंकि अगर क्वालिटी डिस्टर्ब हो जाती है और क्वालिटी का वो मयार नहीं रहता, और अगर आप क्वालिटी पे कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ करके ऑनलाइन लर्निंग सेल कर रहे हैं, तो हम वहाँ ही दोबारा आ गए हैं जहाँ पे हम खड़े हुए थे, वो ये कि कोई भी एजुकेशन किसी को भी दे दें, कोई मसला नहीं है। सो आई थिंक क्वालिटी इज़ द मोस्ट। एंड देन सेकंड चीज़ जो हमें शुरू में बहुत बड़ा मसला आता था, वो ये था हमें चैम्पियंस नहीं मिलते थे, हमें लोग बिलीव करने वाले नहीं मिलते थे। ये लोग कहते थे ये चलेगा ही नहीं, ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता पाकिस्तान के अंदर। कोई लिटरली पीपल टोल्ड अस कि आप मैं देखूंगा वो दिन जब आपकी कोई टीचर अपनी जेब से 7,000 रुपये का कोर्स करेगी। People will not do that. And I think again I would say that once you're very clear about the framework you want to operate in, and once you're very clear कि लोगों को इसका फ़ायदा हो रहा है, and they can see the फ़ायदा not on their quality of life but also on their wallet, यानी मेरी सैलरी में इजाफा हुआ है, मेरी तरक्की हुई है, मुझे मेरे CV के ऊपर एक मुझे नया स्टार मिला है। I think all those things do matter. I think वो सब चीज़ें हमने कोशिश की करने की, and that was important. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you Dr. Suleiman for sharing those insights. और naturally जब भी एक we start as from an idealistic perspective, लगता है कब कोई नई चीज़ आती है, but eventually when it starts gaining attraction तो सारे on board आहिस्ता आहिस्ता खुद ही होना शुरू हो जाते हैं। But keeping that in mind, when we think about online learning, a very essential component of it is instructional design. और फ़राल की तरफ चलते हैं। फ़राल, we all know as educators that जब हम कोई भी effective classroom experience curate करने की कोशिश करते हैं, there is a lot that goes into it. There is assessment aspect of it, there is the pedagogy aspect of it, there are multiple things happening, right? So please share with us, how do you and your team translate all those enriching and important components of a learning journey into an online format? और थोड़े से हमारे लिए अनपैक करें कि इंस्ट्रक्शनल डिज़ाइन है क्या और इसकी क्या जर्नी है। वॉक अस थ्रू दैट जर्नी विद अस।
Thank you for the question. I feel like every time I get asked this, I get very excited because nobody ever understands by title what I do. So I have to always have a pitch ready to explain what the work sort of entails. वो मुझे कहते हैं आप कोऑर्डिनेटर हैं, आप एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर हो, आप करिकुलम, it just doesn't make sense, but like my eyes shine when I have to explain my work to them. So to put it very simply, you're basically working with a subject matter expert, developing a learning journey where you and the subject matter expert work together, have certain outcomes in mind, आप पूरी learning journey develop करते हैं in the form of a learning product at the end. And in order to do that well, the center and the leadership was very helpful in helping us develop those processes. And I can run some of those with you. And I can also develop on that and how we ensure maybe like quality and learner-centeredness in that. Essentially, think about your course as a learning product, and उसकी एक पूरी development pipeline होती है that we sort of follow. And the framework or the model that we use for it, it's called ADDIE, and it has 5 steps, which stand for analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. Iske andar, I'll unpack some of these for you. The very core component of what we do starts with the needs analysis, which a lot of market research also helps us do, or we also work with the SME to sort of figure out कि जो आप बना रहे हैं learner के लिए उनकी need है क्या? What should the course or the learning experience at the end sort of offer to the learner? And through that research, you figure out, okay, the learning gaps, the learning needs, what they want to learn, how to maybe make the learning experience relevant to their current gaps, their current realities. You understand what would help them maybe gain certain skills in their future employment. उसको ज़हन रखते हुए, and keep this in mind, this also helps your learning product become as user-centered as possible, because आप उनकी need को ज़हन में रखते हुए you're developing the entire product. Then there's we work with an SME. So the SME, your subject matter expert, is the content expert that's working with you. You're working in tandem with them to develop कि sir ये आपकी needs हैं, let's see कि इसके learning outcomes at the end of it ये होने चाहिए, now let's think about developing a learning journey around it. जिसके अंदर फिर आपकी instructional design strategy आती है, आपकी assessment strategy आती है, आपकी visual strategy आती है, and all of these are their different core components of the team that are working towards it. So the 4 or 5 main verticals that are working on this are आपकी market research है, आपकी instructional design है, which are basically your project managers. They take the project from start to the end, and they're also the learning experts that are sort of curating it for while development. Then you have pre-production, then you have production, and then you also have marketing and IT and all of these people sort of working with you. So if I explain to you, for example, what the visual strategy or what a visual lookbook looks like, which is a very core component of what we do, is exactly how will you help instruction in a video format. What does the visual logic need to be? और उसके अंदर इतनी बारीकी से काम हो रहा होता है कि रंग क्या होना चाहिए, आइकॉन का रंग क्या होना चाहिए है, how should a certain concept, for example, if it's a scientific concept, it has to be broken down much more in maybe like a higher tier animation that should help it break it down for the learner. So a lot of those things are happening together, and it's a very multi-stakeholder management sort of a role that you're also catering as a project manager, जिसमें आपने instructor की expectations भी manage करनी है, आपने learner की expectation भी manage करनी है, आपने cross teams की expectations भी manage करनी है, आपने quality भी compromise नहीं करनी, आपने अपनी leadership को भी बताना है why you're doing certain things. There's a rationale backed for everything. And then वो होता है कि आपकी videos बनती हैं, there's reviews. They go into pre-production, production. There are extensive storyboards that are made which actually translate the script that you make, that the instructor records, into a visual strategy of what it would look on video. And then we produce it, and then we review it, and then we put it into implementation, and we have evaluation at the end of it to ensure that we have iterations that we can fix. So it's a pipeline that we sort of follow. And honestly, even if though I'm giving you a blueprint, every project is different because the stakeholders are different. So the nature of every project is very different. The one you're building for an educator is going to be very different from the one that you're building for an IT expert or some data science के vertical में, या आप communications का course बना रहे हैं, that's going to be different. So you keep the needs in mind. And if you have any follow-ups, I can also elaborate. मैं लंबा चली जाऊँगी मुझे लगता है इसके अंदर, but this is what the entire process sort of looks like.
Yeah, thank you, Spayal, for sort of unpacking what instructional design entails, जो कि बड़ा एक important aspect to understand digital learning. But I do like you to touch a little bit about कि in a world जहाँ पे इतनी ज़्यादा digital noise है, इतने courses available हैं, Coursera, Udemy, what sort of distinguishes you? I know आपने processes को unpack किया, और जब mass और scale की भी बात करते हैं, तो how do you ensure कि आपकी instructional integrity जो है वो compromise ना हो? बहुत सारे चीज़ों को लेके चलना होता है साथ.
I remember thinking about this question and thinking, Manu, बस मुश्किल सवाल पूछ रही है मेरे से, but I'm going to answer it as much with honesty and integrity as I can. So making the learning experience meaningful itself, we have a couple of things that we do in order to make it relevant for the learner. सो उसके अंदर आपकी कोर करिकुलम स्ट्रेटजीज उस तरह से होती हैं कि वी यूज़ अ बाइलिंगुअल फॉर्म ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शन, बिकॉज मैं मिक्स ऑफ उर्दू एंड इंग्लिश में बात करूँगी, वो फॉर श्योर मेरी ऑडियंस को विच इज़ मेंट फॉर अ लोकल पाकिस्तानी ऑडियंस वो ज़्यादा बेहतर समझ में आती है. उसके अलावा when you use examples that are more relevant to their experience, to their context, to their world, they're more palpable to understanding and they're more interested in what you're teaching them. Uske ilawa, we also, like I mentioned, apart from the pedagogical lens, jiske andar, I was also thinking we do a lot of creative things to also sort of, so a lot of educators yahan might know the concept of authentic assessments, which actually helps you sort of apply what you're learning immediately into like a real world application context or something that you can use at the end of the day, which makes learning more connected to the future, their current goals and their future goals and their current realities of the learner. So these are all sort of the learning design that is informing the product at the end. उसके अलावा प्रोसेसेस के अंदर जब आप इस तरह की चीज़ें इंक्लूड करते हो, वेर आप नीड्स असेसमेंट कर रहे हैं, आप पायलट्स कर रहे हैं, जिसके अंदर आप ड्यूरिंग क्रिएशन ऑफ द प्रोडक्ट आप ले रहे हैं सर्टन रेलिवेंट स्टेक होल्डर्स से फीडबैक है, व्हाट डू यू थिंक, इज दिस वर्किंग, इज दिस नॉट वर्किंग, दैट ऑल्सो कीप्स इन्फॉर्मिंग द प्रोडक्ट ऑन हाउ यू वांट टू मूव फॉरवर्ड. Then you also have evaluations at the end of the learning experience to ensure कि एक iteration, for example, something did not work, how do you improve in the next iteration. उसके अलावा some of the principles that we use in terms of living curriculum कि आप industry experts को लेके आते हैं, उनसे बातें सुनते हैं कि how what they're learning is relevant to them. I can give a very small example. For example, we have a very reputed instructor, उनका नाम Dr. Aga है, who has built the machine learning course with us, for example. And उसके अंदर उनकी pedagogy and उनका learning style इतना ज़्यादा relevant था that he would also talk about कि machine learning कि वो जो बात कर रहे हैं वो एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर ऑफ पाकिस्तान में किस तरह अप्लाई हो सकती है, या वो मशीन लर्निंग फॉर डेवलपमेंट कैसे यूज़ करती है. यू आर गिविंग द लर्नर एवेन्यूज टू ऑल्सो फर्दर एक्सटेंड देयर लर्निंग इन एन एप्लीकेशन ओरिएंटेड वे टू what they're trying to any kind of goals that they might have in the future. So that's sort of how we think about these things. Scale के ऊपर, do you want me to talk about the scale part as well?
If you'd like to, that's fine.
So I think, like Dr. Salman said, scale जो है ना वो quality के साथ a lot of the times mutually exclusive थोड़ी सी समझी जाती हैं चीज़ें कि ये हो नहीं सकती साथ साथ. And I do understand it is a challenge, but I think the center at the moment is taking it as an opportunity to see how we can innovate and sort of explore कि इसके साथ हम क्या कर सकते हैं. And just banking on some ideas के for example, a blocker तो नहीं कहूँगी, a challenge that comes in scaling, आपको assessments के बारे में बहुत ज़्यादा सोचना पड़ता है कि robust assessment करने के लिए थोड़ी सी it's done better if it's done in a smaller way or if it's done in a more attentive way. But we still think something that the center is right now trying to do and we're trying to implement is AI automation grading के ऊपर काफ़ी काम हो रहा है, which we're trying to see how that tool can be implemented to be trained to be able to grade correctly and sort of give and वो चीज़ जो है वो हम implement करके कैसे learner को facilitate कर सकते हैं without any kind of human effort going into that. उसके अलावा you also think about the kinds of offerings that you have when you go on scale. So for example, the center in terms of systems is thinking about कि आप concentrated portfolio को scale में कैसे कर सकते हैं, कम चीज़ offer करें उसको scale पे करें with the certain resources that you have. You can also have offerings that are more customized. So always remember कि हर किसी का goal जो है वो proficiency for example नहीं होती. A lot of the outcomes that you're looking at for learning products are also knowledge based. So you can also have tiered offerings where a knowledge based offering can be for a scalable audience and then more specialized offerings you can offer to people and that can be at a more tailored experience with more resources attached to it. So those are the kinds of things we're thinking about at the center right now कि इनको हम किस तरह quality maintain करते हुए इन चीज़ों को कैसे entertain किया जा सकता है. And if there are further questions, I would be happy to sort of delve more into this.
Yeah, thank you Faryal for sharing with us comprehensively what goes into instructional design and how you sort of balance scale with the quality of offerings that you have at the center. But we know कि ठीक है product बन गया, एक बड़ा learner centered course बन गया, but the journey doesn't end there. We have KPIs to meet, there's revenue targets, and keeping all of that in mind, I'd like to add Khazar into the mix. Khazar, you work with different global and local partners. We have the example of Multan University for Science and Technology, Pepsi's Roshan Kal program, and some global clients like Business Line in Iraq. तो आप थोड़ा सा हमारे साथ share करें, how do you sort of make them believe that this format of learning model works? And उनका feedback, how do you integrate, balance, you know, there's stakeholder demands and then there are operational realities. कैसे लेके चलते हैं हम इन सब चीज़ों को?
Thank you, Manur. So, इसमें, you know, like Prayal has mentioned, and now we have come to this point of stability, I would say, जहाँ पे हमारे processes defined हैं, we've got a pipeline to make these quality courses. अब now we are at a stage where we have to scale, और इस point पे we do, you know, have to make a lot of choices as well. जब हम setup कर रहे थे, तो उस एक्सपेक्टेशन थी आपकी, यू नो, सेट ऑल दीज प्रोसेसेस, हमने हमारा जो इम्पैक्ट वाज द फोकस विच स्टिल इज द फोकस, लेकिन अब यूनिवर्सिटी की हमारे से लम्स की एक्सपेक्टेशन है एज अ, यू नो, रेवेन्यू सेंटर एज वेल. हमारे सर्टन फॉर एग्जांपल KPIs हैं ओवर द ईयर, फाइनेंशियल रियलिटीज़ हैं दैट वी हैव टू टेक केयर ऑफ, एंड वी हैव टू गेट टू अ पॉइंट ऑफ कंप्लीट फाइनेंशियल सस्टेनेबिलिटी. अब इसके अंदर फिर आपके बहुत सारे चॉइसेस आ जाते हैं. दैट फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर मैं एक एग्जांपल दूं, हमने मुल्तान यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ एक हमारा ऑनलाइन डेटा साइंस, इंट्रोडक्शन टू डेटा साइंस का कोर्स है, हमने वो उनके साथ इम्प्लीमेंट किया, यू नो, वेयर दे 5th सेमेस्टर में दे आर टेकिंग, देयर स्टूडेंट्स आर टेकिंग दैट डेटा साइंस कोर्स. It's a 3 credit hour course, but the revenue, for example, that we get in maybe not be, you know, we can do other projects that might bring in more revenue. But we took that project for impact and the kind of impact that it creates in that area. But then there might be another enterprise offering that, you know, we go for. For example, हमने Pepsi का एक Roshan Kal Academy program किया. This was all about scale. We are talking 4,000 learners, business communication का course, AI का course उनके साथ किया. So it's all about making those choices, you know, those financial realities that we have to take care of. तो इसमें आई थिंक मानूर सबसे ज़्यादा चैलेंज भी अब हमारा यही होता है कि हाउ डू वी, यू नो, व्हाट कोर्सेज डू वी मेक. फॉर एग्जांपल, जो प्रोसेस है फरयाल ने बताया, इट्स वेरी एलेबरेट. नाउ डू वी मेक अ कोर्स ऑन प्रोजेक्ट बेस्ड लर्निंग, और डू वी मेक अ कोर्स ऑन डेटा साइंस, डू वी कीप मेकिंग कोर्सेज ऑन डेटा साइंस एंड AI which might sell better. So all those choices of impact and revenue considerations, the targets, the growth, we have to keep all that together. And it's, I think it's that sort of friction between, and a positive friction between strategy and vision and operational realities, you know, that we have to keep in mind. So, you know, this is sort of the operational challenge.
Thank you, Jazab, for Sridhar, sorry to, you mentioned the friction between strategy and operations, and I'd like to pivot towards Jazab. Jazab, you are all about ambitious growth, scale, expansion. But then Khizr कहते हैं कि ये on ground realities हैं in terms of operations. So I'd like to give the floor to you both and share some context with the audience.
Sure. So going back to my earlier point, the reason we need to think like engineers and managers in this industry is because we need to find a way to scale despite the challenges. Why do we need to scale? Well, first of all, something like LumsX, since it's still in its early stages of maturity, we have investors, we have stakeholders, we still have people who are skeptical about it. Now is the time to overcome that through a lot of growth. And that growth needs to not just be 10% every year. We're at the point at which if we start showing 10% growth every year, our investors will lose interest, the audiences will lose interest, the stakeholders will lose interest. We need to show exponential growth to keep people excited so they agree that yes, this was the right investment to make at this time, this was the right initiative to launch at this time. Secondly, the reason it makes sense to scale is because that opportunity is there. We've talked about how many people can benefit from it, both in terms of numbers and of quality, but there is no end to the content everyone should be learning. Once we launch a course on foundations of AI, the next inevitable thing is, well, how do you use AI for productivity? The next inevitable thing is, how do you use AI in law, in financial services? There is no end to what people can benefit from. I mean, in some ways, I feel like I'm at the midpoint of my career, but I discover something every day that is useful to learn, or something that I would take in an instant if it was there and it would help me in my career. There is no end to what we can learn as teachers, as industry people, so there's no end to the new courses that can be made. The beauty of online learning is, it's not some bureaucratic, rigid module ke aapne itne courses karne, itne units karne. Let's just make what people want, what they're not getting in the classroom, and what can be better delivered in an online format that people can do at their own pace. That is why the scale is so important, because there is that opportunity. And if we don't catch that opportunity now, if we don't try to scale now, the skeptics will win. You know, they'll say after 2 to 3 years, itni excitement thi online learning ke upar, wo wahi hain jahan pe 10 saal pehle thi, 20 saal pehle thi. That's why I keep emphasizing Pakistan right now, LumsX right now, we're at the point where we have people who agree that the proof of concept works. They want it to scale. They don't want to see thousands of users. They want to see hundreds of thousands of users. We need to get the industry to that point where it becomes inevitable, and then a lot of things will really fall into place.
Thank you, Jazib, for sharing that with us. Khizr, you'd like to add something to this?
बिल्कुल, you know, एक तो इसमें I'd like to add one thing here though, कि we have seen, and you know, this kind of strengthens our belief when we go out to different organizations now. So for example, we have open enrollment courses as well that anyone can take, and I'll encourage everyone to take a look at our courses as well. So there are open enrollment courses, and now we are also, you know, actively going out to organizations, and organizations are coming to us. For example, we're talking PepsiCo, Abhi Feroz's labs ke saath we're doing a project where we have developed a growth and leadership programs. So iski jo beauty hai, Manur, we have been able to turn this challenge around, ke people who are skeptical about online learning actually then discover organizations, it gives you so much flexibility. अब ये जो growth and leadership program है, इसके अंदर आपका data and visualization से लेकर project management से लेकर sales, retail marketing, it covers, you know, the whole ground. And how we are able to do that, and these are for frontline workers. ये लोग field में काम करते हैं, they're very busy, you know, during the day, इनका evening. So ये was only possible through blended learning approach. So we have online modules, इसके अंदर there are some asynchronous components, then there are obviously case methods that are available, case studies, there's reading material, and then there's also some in-person classes, some online classes. We work around their schedule. We're able to devise this whole program. This is only possible through, you know, online learning. So इसके अंदर again जो जाजिब का जो point है कि yes, we have to achieve that scale, and it is only possible through that digital learning, you know, format. That is our belief here, and we see it being materialized now.
Yeah, thank you both of you for sharing some insights on strategy versus operations. थोड़ा conversation को आगे चलते हैं. Digital learning experiences की बात हो रही है, तो AI, we cannot forget that, and AI is everywhere. Dr. Sulaiman, AI क्या replace कर रहा है teachers को, humans को? Contentions और apprehensions बहुत सारी हैं, तो I'd like you to share some of that with us, or what are some of the ethical frameworks around it? We'd like to hear your perspective on AI, किस तरह we can embrace it.
मेरा ख्याल था मानूर हमारी इस पैनल में जान बच जाएगी AI से, लेकिन आई थिंक इससे जान बचना बहुत मुश्किल हो गया. देखें, एक बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट जो चीज़ है वो ये कि चाहे आप टेक की बात करें या चाहे आप AI की बात करें, हमारा रोल एज अ टीचर इज़ चेंजिंग अ लॉट. सो अब हम वो जो इंफॉर्मेशन डिलीवरी वाला पूरे का पूरा मोड था, उससे हम आगे निकल के फैसिलिटेटर्स बन चुके हैं, बिकॉज देयर इज़ ऑलरेडी सो मच आउट देयर कि उसके ज़रिए आपने सिर्फ क्यूरेट करना है लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंस के, यार यहाँ से ये पकड़ लो, यहाँ से ये पकड़ लो, यहाँ से ये पकड़ लो, और उस प्रोसेस के अंदर यू वांट स्टूडेंट्स टू लर्न इन अ डिफरेंट वे नाउ. बिकॉज अगर आप सिंपल कहेंगे, आप उनके लिए आपसे जल्दी आपसे बेहतर चीज़ ढूंढना मुश्किल काम नहीं है, लेकिन उसको समझ के, उसको इकट्ठा करके, उसको सिंथेसाइज करके उसे काबिल इस्तेमाल बनाना अभी भी मुश्किल काम है. सो आई थिंक जो मेरा आई वांटेड टू कम बैक टू द पॉइंट कि जो ऑनलाइन लर्निंग है उसके अंदर भी आपकी जो अप्रोच रही है वो यही रही है कि आप फैसिलिटेटर बन गए हैं. राइट, सो वी कांट गिव यू द होल बुक. जैसे आप 14 आपके पास 20 लेक्चर्स हैं, 45 मिनट का ईच लेक्चर है. इट डजंट हैपन इन ऑनलाइन लर्निंग. यू गिव देम सम आइडियाज एंड दोज आइडियाज कैन देन कैन बी एक्सटेंडेड लेटर ऑन. सो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ ये है. सो मैं आपको एक छोटी सी एग्जांपल देता हूँ कि जो जाजिब स्केल की बात करें वो क्यों ज़रूरी है. और लम्स के अंदर आई वाज आल्सो द फाउंडिंग डायरेक्टर ऑफ लम्स लर्निंग इंस्टीट्यूट. उसमें हमारे पास एक फैकल्टी मेंबर आए, नए PhD करके आए, बड़े अच्छे इदारे से. मैं उसका नाम नहीं लूँगा, कहीं नाम पता ना चल जाए वो कौन है. सो बहुत लाइक आप समझ लें आईवी लीग से, टॉप जगह से वो पढ़ के आए PhD करके. वन ऑफ द बेस्ट रिसर्चर्स वी हैव सीन. हमने कोर्स आउटलाइन मंगवाई एज अ डायरेक्टर. आई सॉ कि आई वांटेड टू सी कि लम्स के अंदर असेसमेंट्स कैसे होती हैं, एंड दैट सो दैट वी कैन लर्न फ्रॉम दैट एंड वी कैन हेल्प पीपल टू इंप्रूव देयर असेसमेंट. द जेंटलमैन, अ वेरी वेरी स्मार्ट पर्सन, हैड 50% द कोर्स का मार्क ग्रेड पूरे का पूरा एक 30 मिनट की प्रेजेंटेशन के ऊपर. सो इफ यू हैव बैड 30 मिनट्स, आपका आधे का पूरा जो ग्रेड है उसमें से आधा वुड बी डन. इट्स अ टेरेबल आइडिया टू डू. इट्स सो अनफेयर, बट द जेंटलमैन हैड नो क्लू. सो ये बेसिक है टीचिंग की. राइट? सो अगर आपके पास पाकिस्तान के अंदर 2 मिलियन टीचर्स ऐसे हैं जो ये काम कर रहे हैं, राइट? सो उन तक ये बात पहुंचाना, जो कि इंतहाई बेसिक चीज़ के क्लासरूम कंडक्ट कैसे करनी है, आपने क्लासरूम मैनेज कैसे करनी है, करिकुलम डिज़ाइन होता क्या है, 30 मिनट की बात कैसे करनी है, क्लास शुरू कैसे करनी है, ख़त्म कैसे करनी है, बच्चे के सवाल का जवाब कैसे देना है, ये कोई रॉकेट साइंस नहीं है। मैं आपसे ये कह रहा हूँ कि आपने क्लास के अंदर एंटर होके आपका बॉडी पोस्चर किया है, बच्चे लगे कि आज मैम जो है एनर्जी के साथ आई हैं। ये रॉकेट साइंस तो नहीं है ना? जब आप क्लास खत्म करें तो बच्चों को पता हो कि ये मैंने क्यों पढ़ा है, रॉकेट साइंस तो नहीं है। अगर हमारा पाकिस्तान का मसला ये है तो बहुत दूर है अभी एआई और बहुत दूर और चीज़ें हैं। ये वाला मसला हल करने के लिए LumZex as a platform is absolutely essential, because you can't, Beacon House is a group with all the things you have and all the management and the event you have done. आप कितने पाकिस्तान के बच्चों को टीचर्स को ट्रेन कर सकते हैं? जस्ट आप अपना हर स्कूल भी ओपन कर दें, फिर भी बहुत मुश्किल काम है। सो आई थिंक दैट्स वाई जो जाज़िब ने बात की, स्केल इज एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट, बिकॉज स्केल का मतलब ये नहीं है कि हमने बहुत अजीम काम कर देना, हम कह रहे हैं वी डोंट हैव द बेसिक्स राइट। सो नाउ जब हम चैलेंज की तरफ आते हैं एआई की, जो अगर इफ यू आर अ बैड टीचर, एआई शुड इंशाल्लाह रिप्लेस यू। ठीक है, आई प्रे टू अल्लाह दैट एआई रिप्लेस यू, because there is no point of not using AI when AI can do a much better job than you. So of course, you know, AI is going to replace all of us if we don't do a good job, because student is not interested in listening to you when he or she can get a much better answer for somewhere else.
Yeah.
And same for online learning. If the YouTube is a great help, why should I listen to you? I would say मैडम आती हैं, सर आते हैं क्लास में, वही बातें करते स्टोरियाँ चलाते चले जाते हैं। You know, I will go out, मैं स्कूल इसलिए आता हूँ क्योंकि मैं बास्केटबॉल खेल सकूँ, उसके बाद मैंने जाके करना क्या है, मैंने जाके YouTube देखनी है, मुझे आधे घंटे का मैथ समझ आ जाएगा, मैडम पढ़ाए ना पढ़ाएं को मुझे मसला नहीं है। So 100% AI is going to replace you if we don't change our mindsets. And if we change our mindsets, then of course, you know, and we need to adopt that. So that skill is fundamental. और मैं I belong to the group जो कहता ये है कि AI is an amazing disruptive force which is also terrible at some points. So क्योंकि हमारे पास कोप करने की स्किल नहीं है इतनी क्विकली, तो AI is going to hurt us. So मैं तो I always wish कि AI should replace me if I don't change myself. Why not? You know, should I do injustice to my students? So I think it is going to be a big disruptor in the industry, especially in academia. To couple that with online learning, and here is a show which is not going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sulaiman, for quite some thought-provoking insights. We're running a bit short on time, so इसलिए I'd like our speakers to give some final takeaways. But इससे पहले मैं लूँ, I want you all to check out LumZex का course है AI in Classrooms. वो काफ़ी helpful हो सकता है। Upcoming भी है, Dr. Sulaiman का ही है, AI for Educators.
We're not selling courses here.
Yeah, but I just saying कि it will be helpful in, you know, sort of understanding कि how you can embrace AI as a thought partner. So moving towards quick 30-second final takeaways. Jazil.
It's not a competition. There is space for everyone. Let's have learning platforms from everywhere. I want to see online learning design become a very prestigious career. You know, teaching became great when it became prestigious, when training became a part of it. I want to see it as that kind of industry. Most of all, I want all of us here to be excited about online learning courses. मुझे कोई नजर आता है LinkedIn पे किसी ने कोई नया online course launch किया है, I'll be like, I want to take this now, or I'll take it 3 months from now when I have the money for it. So जिस तरह कोई नई movie आ रही हो, नई book आ रही हो, नई whatever, I want us to be cool and nerdy and excited about online learning. That's what will make it scale and make it great.
Yes, Khazir, you're next.
Right. So one other aspect, you know, is very important for scale and for this online learning, that is partnerships. So I will encourage everyone who's here and just overall from any organization that you represent, come and partner with us. You know, we can look into synergies, we can leverage on each other's strengths. So that would be my invitation, that we should leverage on each other's strengths and let's partner.
Yeah, Farah.
I think just as a closing note, I would like to reinforce that digital learning or online learning, how I conceive it or how most people do, is a social mission that you're doing right now. Keeping in mind everything Dr. Sulaiman and Jazib has said, कि आप एक genuine learning crisis and educational concerns को solve करने का एक बहुत useful तरीका देख रहे हैं, तो it is a social mission. And always, I say this a lot to anybody in my team as well, and this is something useful that I learned at a conference that I attended at Aga Khan, which said कि always think that when you want to make online learning effective, that you're not teaching to the screen, you're actually teaching through the screen to an active learner who's sitting at the other end. So when that active learner is in your mind through the entire design process, it will be user-centered and it will work for them in terms of engagement, in terms of learning outcomes, in terms of what they're getting out of it. So yeah.
मेरी नॉर्मली मेरे कोर्सेज के रिव्यूज़ इतने बुरे नहीं आते हैं, you know, और मैं इतना बुरा टीचर नहीं हूँ. So, लेकिन ऑनलाइन लर्निंग के केस में मेरे कोर्सेज के रिव्यूज़ इन पर्सन ज़्यादा बेहतर आते हैं. Right? So, what I want to tell you here, it's a myth कि ऑनलाइन लर्निंग नहीं चलती है. It's a myth. ठीक है, अगर आप सही तरह उसको अडॉप्ट कर सकेंगे, बिल्कुल चलती है. And second option ये है कि I would still love to know कि what other combination we have other than AI and online learning to address the challenge we are facing. If there is any other, I would love to know. I don't know any. I think that's the only way right now, जिस पे हम experiment कर चुके हैं, and we know the combination of AI and online learning can actually help Pakistan. लेकिन हमें उसके लिए जैसे जाजिब ने कहा कि हमें excitement चाहिए. यानी आप जब जाएं तो अच्छी इस तरह जाएं कि यार इसमें से अच्छा निकलेगा. जब आप जाएंगे ऐसे कि यार पता नहीं चलनी तो फिर इंशाल्लाह नहीं चलती. You know, तो आप इस नियत से जाएं कि
On that note, I'd like to cap our conversation today. फिर मैं सवाल भी लेती हूँ कि आज हमने बहुत सारी चीज़ों के बारे में बात की. We talked about innovation, about systems, about access. But I want to remind everyone, including myself, कि learning online, offline, ठीक है, but it's a human journey and we all can play our role. So reflect कि how we can collectively make it more accessible, more human and more transformative and more powerful, embracing online digital forms of media for the future of education landscape in Pakistan. So yeah, thank you. I'll take a few quick questions. The questions are on you can scan the app and you'll have it. No. Okay. So we have a question that platform. Okay. So the question is that Coursera, edX offers thousands of courses at a low price. और इतनी saturated market है, तो what is the USP of LumsX for average? I don't know what average Pakistani student है, but हमने थोड़ा सा address किया. Who would like to address the?
जैसे आप चले जाए, मैं तो बहुत बोला इसके ऊपर.
Sure. So I think the starting spirit of LumsX was there is value for bilingual courses in which people speak a mix of English and Urdu as needed, the way most of us conventionally speak. The other is, you'll see in our courses, the examples tend to be from Pakistan. When I'm making a course primarily for a Pakistan audience, but not exclusively, the examples I give are, you know, I've worked as a project manager in the tech industry here, or in the development sector here. So I give specific examples from here. So the unique aspect of LumsX is definitely the language and the content. But as I emphasized in my closing statement, there is space for all courses. Don't think of online learning as a zero-sum game. Yeah. Somebody who wants to learn something, if I think back to how I used to learn in my school days, I didn't use one book. I had 2 to 3 books in every subject. Ye wala topic is book mein acha, ye wala topic is book mein acha. And that is what I teach the kids today, ke learning styles ki bhi baat hoti hai. There are some things that are explained better elsewhere. So people will use good courses from everywhere. It's not a zero-sum game. So anything we add, and the fact that we do have something unique, that we do have a unique way of thinking about isme kaun sa naya course add karna hai, already gives us an edge in certain ways.
Thank you, Joseph, for sharing your thoughts. एक और सवाल है कि as teachers we are struggling to use AI effectively in our classrooms. Why don't you people launch some short sessions for teachers to learn about tips and tricks of AI? इससे पहले मैं डॉक्टर सुलेमान के पास आऊँ, मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ है वेबसाइट पे आप जाएं, क्लासरूम मैनेजमेंट AI, how to use effectively AI, उस पर आपको काफ़ी कुछ मिल जाएगा. डॉक्टर सुलेमान, टिप्स एंड ट्रिक्स, क्विक.
टिप्स एंड ट्रिक्स तो नहीं है, आपको हमारा कोर्स खरीदना पड़ेगा उसके बगैर तो, बट आई थिंक LumsX हैज़ बीन एक्टिवली वर्किंग ऑन दिस टॉपिक. एंड अभी एक्चुअली मैं महानूर के साथ ही एक AI फॉर एजुकेटर्स का कोर्स बना रहे हैं, जिसमें हम देख रहे हैं कि आपने अपने आप को कैसे ट्रांसफॉर्म करना है फॉर AI एजुकेशन टीचिंग के लिए. बट आई थिंक ऑन अ सीरियस नोट, AI इज़ योर बेस्ट हेल्प ऑल्सो. इफ़ यू एंगेज AI एज अ लर्निंग पार्टनर कि मुझे सिखाएं, मेरी ये लिमिटेशंस हैं, और that also starts the conversation. So I think at least start from there. लेकिन सबसे important चीज़ ये है कि ये जान जाएं, I'm not here to scare, ये जान जाएं कि हमारे पेशे के लिए AI is going to be a decent threat. Because हम चाहते क्या है क्लासरूम के अंदर, हम चाहते हैं बच्चे हमसे excited हों. हम उनके रोल मॉडल बने. आई स्टिल रिमेंबर हमारे कुछ मेरे टीचर्स कुछ रोल मॉडल्स हैं जो मैं आज तक देखता हूँ. Also because of the content, but also because of the relationship we have built with them. So AI might take the content away. It is not going to take the relationship away. So how would you spend more time from the content to relationship? I think that's going to be more strengthen our overall skills. लेकिन वहाँ पे हमारे पास टाइम बचता ही नहीं है क्योंकि कंटेंट कवर करना होता है तो रिलेशनशिप का टाइम नहीं मिलता.
Thank
so
you.
I think I really hope that we can give some part of our work to AI and then focus on बच्चे के ऊपर. And if we change that, I think inshallah I see a lot of good hope from the AI. Otherwise, मुश्किल है.
Thank you, Dr. Suleiman, for some very transparent and honest apprehensions that we all have. आपने उसको address किया. Faral, this question is especially for you. कि suggest 3 key ways to teachers where they can ensure that they are talking through the screen and not to the screen.
Yeah, it's a nice question. In online learning, आपका basic mindset ही उस तरह से होता है कि मैंने engaged कैसे रखना है learner को on the screen. So, for example, there are certain strategies and there are theories that you sort of resort to ensure that you're developing something that's not leading to maybe attrition or maybe boring the student. उसमें इस तरह की चीज़ें होती हैं जैसे आपकी just giving some examples, cognitive load theory होती है कि आपने chunk कैसे करनी है information to ensure that the learner के ऊपर cognitive load नहीं बढ़ रहा in terms of how they're processing information. So there's a lot of work that goes into how to teach something in a compact, synthesized way without कि मैं आधे घंटे की वीडियो डाल दूँ ये देख लें जाके. उसके अलावा there are also a lot of so one of the things that I learned was also how often are you making the learner click a button, for example, to activate their mind while they're doing something. So you can have things like in video quizzes where quickly when they learn something there's a knowledge check that you're doing instantly to sort of have them think about oh मैंने अभी यही सीखा है. You have formative learning activities, you embed reflections in your courses to have them actively relate what they're thinking to their own life. You have peer interactions, आप उनसे discussions कराते हैं, आप उनसे उनका brain actually activate कर रहे होते हैं while they're learning, कि they're not just absorbing expository content, they're actually applying it as they're going along to either their internal self or their situations or their realities. So there's an entire learning science and pedagogical science that's working behind ensuring कि learner जो है वो actively engaged है throughout the entire learning journey that they're sort of taking.
मैं यहाँ पे एक चीज़ ऐड करूँ ऑनलाइन लर्निंग के अंदर. This is extremely important that you try to understand your learner much more than in your classroom because आपके सामने जो screen है ना वो बहुत बड़ा barrier बन जाती है और आपको उसके पीछे का बंदा नज़र नहीं आ रहा होता. So the more you understand who is Hajra and who is Ahmed and who is Binish and who is that, and then if you can relate in your conversation कि आपने Binish के बाद कब जाना है और आपने हाजरा के पास कब जाना है और आपने अहमद के पास कब जाना है, and this is a very active exercise you have to do in your mind. And you have to learn over time how they're responding and how they're integrating and how they are actually building the relationship. If you don't do that, many of these techniques are actually जो अभी बात की, they might also not work actually. So I think बहुत active आपको effort चाहिए to understand the learner. Even I would say much more than in the classroom because classroom का अपना pressure होता है to contribute. But online learning के अंदर तो लोग मोटरसाइकिल पे बैठ के आपका lecture ले रहे हैं, लगे हुए हैं, साथ पान खा रहे हैं, साथ आइसक्रीम खा रहे हैं, साथ lecture ले रहे हैं, मैडम भी खुश, मैं भी खुश. So उसमें आपकी understanding बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है.
On that note, we'd like to end today's conversation. I'd like to thank all the panelists for some thought-provoking insights from different angles: access, instructional design, production, partnerships. And I'd also like to appreciate and thank you for listening to us. And I hope कि थोड़ी सी curiosity और reflection पे हमने आपको prompt किया है to embrace, not be threatened by digital learning or be apprehensive about it, but embrace it as a thought partner and be open to learning, relearning and unlearning. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you to our guests for such an insightful conversation. We request you to vacate the hall for the next session, beginning at 1:50 p.m. In the meantime, please visit the social junction for food and live entertainment. Also check out MindBind, the immersive art experience presented by BNU in the Royal Grand Hall. See you at the next session. extend our appreciation to all our other sponsors. My name is Jonathan, and I'm an AI announcer for SOT events. Please take a moment to note these important housekeeping points. Please ensure your cell phone is silent. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for session feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtags, #co-creating-tomorrow and #SOT2025. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the SOT app. We are delighted to have you with us today for a big conversation, which promises to be insightful and engaging. Children at risk, abuse, exploitation, and safety in the age of AI brings together thought leaders, experts, and practitioners to share their unique perspectives, inspiring action and innovation. The session will last for about an hour, followed by a Q&A session. The moderator for this session is Mr. Humayun Bashir Tara. Mr. Humayun is Additional Inspector General of Police with over 25 years of distinguished service in the police service of Pakistan. He currently serves as an advisor at the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. Throughout his career, he has held major leadership roles including DIG Headquarters, Punjab, and Director of the Cyber Crime Wing at the Federal Investigation Agency, where he led national efforts against online crimes, particularly those targeting women and children. He has also headed the Integrated Border Management System, served as police chief in 4 major cities across Pakistan, and played a central role in digitizing operational processes in the Punjab Police. Mr. Tara holds a Master of Public Policy from the University of Oxford as a Chevening Scholar, and is also a Humphrey Fellow from Syracuse University and a Fellow of the National Defense University in Washington, D.C. I now invite Mr. Humayun Bashir Tara to join us on stage.
Thank you very much. That was my first time being introduced by AI. And just a thought, well, it can't always be fully correct. And I was not central in introducing technology in Punjab Police. I was part of it, but someone who is central, you will be meeting him very shortly. First, a little bit of housekeeping. There's a pre-poll on the app and then post-poll. So if you can access from the app the poll, that will be helpful for us. And before I go on to introduce the topic a little bit and our esteemed panelists, let me give the disclaimer at the very start. This is a serious, a very detailed topic, very close to our heart. And so, to do justice to it, I've made some notes, and please do forgive me if you find me referring back to my notes more than that is required. And with that, I don't know how many Game of Thrones fans are in this room, but a wise man once said that if you are spending more on your coffee than your cyber safety, you ought to be hacked. But that is, the lightest it can get. It gets darker, it gets sinister from here. Everyone in this room, or I would say almost everyone, has at one point sent some message, some material, which they should not have sent, which was inappropriate. And you are all sitting safe here because that material did not go to a predator, that material did not go to a blackmailer. And this is the extent of the problem. Ladies and gentlemen, cyber world was said to be the world of future. The future is already here. We are living in the future. The winter is not coming. The winter is here, and it is really dark. Forgive me, there will be hope. But to handle this very complex, multi-layered problem of online child sexual abuse, we have with us a very star-studded panel, and let me welcome them now. Our first panelist is Ms. Sara Ahmed, who is a member of the Provincial Assembly and the chairperson of Child Protection and Welfare Bureau, Government of Punjab. She is truly a national leader in her field and has done phenomenal, groundbreaking work for which she has received Tamga Imtiaz in 2024. Please welcome Ms. Sara. Our next panelist is Mr. Umar Bashir Manyar, who is an advisor in an FCDO project known Upscale, and he advises on online child sexual abuse. Mr. Manyar is a rule of law expert with over 12 years of experience in criminal justice reform, focusing on improving access to justice for vulnerable groups across Pakistan. He has worked with Adam Smith since 2018 and with Legal Society before that. Please welcome Mr. Umar. The next panelist is Dr. Asha Bedar, who is a clinical psychologist, trainer, and researcher. She has a PhD from the University of Melbourne, Australia, and has over 27 years of experience working with individuals, groups, and professionals in justice, health, and social sector. Her work focuses on gender-based violence, abuse and trauma, post-disaster, psychologist support, and human rights. Dr. Sarah, please. And our final panelist is the superstar of the police service of Pakistan, the man solely responsible for over 80% of all digital and all initiatives in Punjab Police, none other than Mr. Muhammad Hassan Yunus, the MD of Punjab Safe City Authority. Mr. Muhammad Hassan Yunus is also a graduate of Harvard University. Thank you very much for being here on this panel, ladies and gentlemen. You know, children are living two lives. They are living in the physical world, and they are also living their entire life in the virtual world. They are on WhatsApp for their homeworks. They are connecting with friends through technology. They are interacting with their teachers through technology. And while they are doing all that, we have TikTok, WhatsApp, and all kinds of social media platforms and internet-based applications where they interact with everyone, and most of the time where they interact with strangers as well. Technology is here and it's going to stay here, but how we deal with its dangers, which specifically for this panel is the online child sexual abuse, which takes the form of sextortion, which takes the form of bullying, and so many other, so CSAM, the material that is generated, shared by children themselves, or generated by AI. Now, when we talk about children, the first concept comes into mind, someone 10, 11 years old, but no. A 17-year-old is a child, and really, in danger, really there to be exploited. And the national scene is that there's a federal agency which deals with this, and then there are provincial law enforcement agencies and departments with deal with this. So without further delay, just to frame our first round, which is something around where does the system break, and is an attempt to kind of identify the fault lines and identify them honestly. So we have strong laws, but limited capacity to implement them. And we have then these different jurisdictions. And we have these amazing panelists who are heading departments and doing amazing work. So this round essentially is identifying the gaps. And my first question would be to Umar, that legally and institutionally, where does the pipeline collapse first, starting from detection to child protection?
Right, I think before the legal part, I think just sort of socially, I think it breaks down at the very beginning, right? Which is to recognize online child abuse or the risks to children online as being actual real risks. And as parents, as caretakers, as educators in the room, recognizing that the online world is real. And I think, so, starting off from there, and then the fact is that our legal regime has evolved over time, and it's evolved reactively. And so when you think of child abuse legislation, or how does the state respond, it's covered under the Pakistan Penal Code, which covers actual physical abuse. It's covered under the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act, which covers online abuse. It's covered under various child protection agencies. So in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, there is a provincial law that covers both. And so law enforcement, or if I were to flip it, as a victim or a survivor of online child sexual exploitation and abuse, the first question is, who do I even go to report the crime? Do I go to the police? In Punjab, they don't have jurisdiction over cybercrime. Do I go to a federal agency like the National Cybercrime Investigation Agency? They're not everywhere. They have 15 offices around the country. Do I go to a child protection and welfare service? Do I call up one of the various helplines that we have that are not interconnected with each other? So I think it breaks down at the very beginning, which is we don't recognize how to keep children safe online, or what is the risk to children online as parents, as supervisors of children. And then as a state, we don't really have a cohesive policy across the various state institutions. And just to explain the complexity of this, I tried to catalog how many different agencies or government departments are responsible for keeping children safe online. And it starts with, at the federal level, it's the Ministry of Interior has a role, Ministry of Human Rights has a role, the National Commission on the Rights of the Child has a role, your Federal Investigation Agency has a role, the National Cybercrime Investigation Agency has a role. At the provincial level, it's going to be obviously provincial police, provincial child protection welfare bureaus, your provincial prosecution department, you've got educators, so the education department, the health department, and somehow we have to figure out a way to get all of them to work together, talking and dealing with a crime that most people will not even want to report, right? So, I think that's the kind of landscape that we're operating in, with breaking points and failure points sort of all across the chain.
Thank you, Umar. So, taking a cue from here, the federal jurisdiction, the provincial jurisdiction, and then the question of capacity. NCCIA has 200 people to investigate more than 100,000 complaints. And then we have Punjab Police, where we have different capacity, but problems of jurisdiction. Going straight to Mr. Essen, what capacities we now have in the Punjab Safe City Authority in this regard, and what part of the system do you think is most mismatched with the scale of digital abuse?
Thank you very much. It's my honor to be here, and I'm so grateful to the organizers and Humayun Sahab for inviting me here and giving us an opportunity to share what we are trying to do and what we think about this issue. I will just need a minute extra for taking you all back in July 2024, when we launched our first virtual center for child safety in this country, and we attached that center with 1.5. We made sure that we had a very strong collaboration with the Child Protection Bureau. Madam Sara is here. She's 24/7 service and the 24/7 presence of officers round the clock on the service was available. And this around 18 months or so. Together we have processed more than 107,000 cases related to children. 51,000 children were reunited with their family, and we have a physical proof of that. In this era only, 18 months, we are talking about just July 24 to November. Again, around 34,000 cases among these 15,000 were those where people reported that our child has gone missing. And with Punjab Police and Child Protection Bureau and everything with the social media as well. So we made it sure that they are returned, and 1,000 are still missing from that figure. And we have made it sure that an FIR is registered and the investigation is on a stage where the child recovery is ensured. Around 17,000 people reported us a child on a street. The child who's unidentified, that was reported to us, More than 16,000 have been successfully returned, reunited with their families, and more than 1,000 which have not been identified so far. Now we have a clear understanding and the mapping where they are now, whether they are at the Child Protection Bureau, whether they are at ED Center or anywhere else. Then we started a new thing in this, then because once you start working on a project, then you learn the real challenges behind it. We noticed that thousands of children across Pakistan in orphanages, in centers, in protection bureaus are lying there since years and years, some decades. So we started a new project with the name of Mera Pyara, My Beloved. Mera Pyara is our part of our effort to work on all cold cases where children are lying or now they are in major age, and they are not reunited and they are not known to their families since ages. And the highest number of years they were missing was 21 years. The last child which we had reunited with their family in Kasur was missing for 21 years. And we tracked her from Karachi. And if you just go to Mera Pyara page, it has a following of more than 10 million. And you will find that people commenting, people contributing, not only from Punjab, but from all cities of Pakistan. We returned a child to Kabul after 2 years.
Excellent.
What we did, that we had employed social media, and now we are running targeted efforts in targeted areas. If any child has said that I belong to Hafzabad, so we said Hafzabad 45 to 55 years male. So all Facebook, all TikToks were targeted on those areas. And believe me that just go to our page on Mera Pyara. In last 1 month, we have reunited more than 150 children who were missing since more than 3 years. So this is, you need to understand, sir, that the challenge is not only online,
Yeah, of
it's
course.
also a big physical challenge as well. So coming now after briefing you about VCCS, which is a virtual center for child safety, and it's a unique initiative. It has been accepted as one of the best international best practices as well. And Mera Pyara, now we are we are not refusing any complaint from any sort. We try either to resolve it at our own end or to process it with NCCIA or FIA, wherever the jurisdiction is. But in most of the cases, we do find our hybrid jurisdiction. That gives us a space of creative compliance and intervene in that. Because many crimes which we see are not only committed online, but as a combination of online and physical crime. So here the law gives us a space, and we try to capture that space in sort of a creative compliance. And this is a missing link, because processing more than 100,000 cases will not be possible with NCCI. Yes. And similarly, as you are very well aware of all the online abuses which have been reported to us by NECMET, it's more than 2 billion. And only 96 FIRs were registered. So the quantum is very high, and we are now pursuing a Punjab Online Safety Act as well. And we are in a process with the Inspector General of Police Punjab, Dr. Usman Anwar, that we are giving multiple solutions on this level. So let's see how it evolves.
So on that, I think we'll now go straight to Ms. Sara Ahmed so naturally, the jurisdiction right now is federal. It comes to province or it doesn't, but child protection remains, entirely in your domain. So what all, where do we stand? What all has been done? And when does a child start slipping through? What happens? Where does it break down?
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to say that it's a great honor to be speaking here on a topic which is extremely close to my heart since I've been working on it for the last 6 years in Punjab. It's extremely sensitive and also urgently critical. When we talk about child abuse, so my department, which is called the Child Protection and Welfare Bureau, it's the only department which is mandated to rescue a child who is subjected to any form of violence or any vulnerability, whether it's a street child, an abandoned child, a missing or a lost child, or an infant, for example. I've seen over the last 5 years, the trend has changed drastically. Initially, abuse was only happening in physical sense, but now it has shifted towards online digital abuse. In 2025, beginning this year, there was a big ring of pornography, child pornography, which was arrested with the efforts of NCCI, Punjab Police, and there were 6 children between the ages of 6 to 10 years. This happened in Muzaffargarh district. They were subjected to pornography, they were filmed, and the videos was being sent on dark web. And these children, after the operation was conducted by NCCI and our police, Punjab Police, these children and CCD, the Crime Control Department of Punjab, these children were transferred to my bureau, which is the Child Protection Welfare Bureau, until the court gave a judgment on where they're supposed to go next. So these kids were being paid rupees 500 for an hour of filming their abuse activities, whatever they were being exploited, it was being filmed and sent to dark web, and they were paid 500 rupees per hour. So basically, poverty, vulnerability is being exploited. Sometimes we see parents being involved, parents do this willingly, and sometimes parents are being kept in the dark, and children are sometimes taken from the schools to such places. And this incident I'm quoting is of 2025 this year. So these kids were given to the custody of Child Protection Bureau, where we rehabilitated them. So our department doesn't only give food, shelter, it's not just a regular orphanage, but we also rehabilitate the child, we provide them socio-psycho counseling, we empower them, and if they stay with us till 18, and if they don't want to continue their education, we provide them jobs also. So now our children are working in multinational companies, some are in army, some have become nurses, so all of this. Now coming back to the topic of artificial intelligence and online child abuse. Your question was, sir, that what do we do, what my department is doing. So number one, we help with the rehabilitation, providing them shelter, that part, as an orphanage. Other than that, we also, with the help of course, Safe City Authorities, which is doing an excellent work, with the help of SN UNICEF's team, we help find the parents of these missing children and help unify them. Other than that, the biggest initiative that we've taken along with UNICEF Pakistan, we're working very closely with UNICEF, and not just in bigger cities, but rural areas also. We're running a major prevention campaign, and a big chunk is called Child Online Abuse Prevention Campaign. So we're targeting parents, teachers, and children themselves, and then we're teaching them about these threats that they can face online, how they can be lured and manipulated. We're teaching parents also to keep a very vigilant check on the activities of children. So all of these, in fact, I have this handout which I'll share with you all as well. There are 9 steps or 9 things you can do to keep your child safe online. These are for parents, right? We circulate these in schools, we circulate these with our seminars and awareness raising sessions, and we don't only target well-to-do parents, we go at the community level. We're going from house to house in these smaller cities, educating them, because now this gadget, which is our cell phone, which is the main interface, this is available with a child from a lower income class segment as well. So we need to target that. Right.
Thank you, Ms. Zara. And yes, sir, just sharing one small bit of information. There was one kid who came to the Office of Director Cybercrime. She was around 16, 17. She was being harassed, blackmailed. She had already paid money. And now the perpetrator was asking her to meet him. and she came, the first question she asked was, will you tell my parents? So, Dr. Asha, when a child does report, where does the system unwittingly re-traumatize them?
Yeah, if you can, everyone can hear me. Thank you for having me here. I mean, first of all, with SOTs, I think it's really commendable that this is a topic that's picked up every time by SOTs, and I think we're looking at a very different aspect of it right now. So just coming to the question, I was thinking while everyone was speaking, we're talking about systems and we're talking about where the system has collapsed, and what I was thinking as a psychologist and someone who's been working on child sexual abuse and assault and rape for many years is, I'm not sure if there ever was a system when it comes to children that is now collapsing. AI is another layer that we've added to it, which has sort of increased access exponentially, the opportunity exponentially, but child sexual abuse, even in the offline world, there is still no system that fully supports children, that even sort of understands what the issue is. So we're talking about it sort of, it's almost like, many, many steps ahead when I think about it. But, whether it's trauma, whether it's understanding why children are sexually abused, what that grooming process involves, how parents respond, how schools respond, how society responds, how the overall justice system responds, we're still struggling with the sort of basic level of support that children and survivors of sexual abuse need. And what's happened is that the world has already sort of moved on. The system has already moved on. We're now talking online, whereas a perpetrator would have access to 1 or 2 or 3 children, they now have access to thousands of children at one time. So the system is already a broken system. It is already an inadequate system. There is no understanding of what kind of we're talking about. I think around what kind of information that sort of parents need. We are still at the very sort of infancy when it comes to what does consent mean? What does control mean? What does power mean? What is child development, and why are children particularly attracted to certain scenarios? Why is it so easy to groom children? And then specifically, what is it about the online world that makes it even easier? And why is there a particular sort of in a sense sort of an addictive element that develops with children's brains when it comes to online? And what is it that we as adults, schools, and even sort of parents miss out? Because one of the things that we were talking about earlier as well was parents and adults haven't really caught up. Children know much more about the online world than we do. And so it's sort of this additional pressure also on parents. Well, until we know what's going on, the system is going to continue to collapse in our very homes, and not just in the justice sector. So I think a lot of the conversation also needs to be around just child sexual abuse in general, and then what are the sort of other things that are happening online that we haven't yet even touched. So we have all of these systems in place, but I think some of the basics we're so far behind on some of the basics and understanding those issues that I think that we really have a very, very long way to go, even with these laws, even with the systems that are in place. So I think one of the things that always hits me when we're having this discussion, particularly around online abuse, is, children are constantly being traumatized and re-traumatized, even when it comes to the physical offline space. Online ka to I think hame abhi pata bhi nahi hai. Just the level of trauma and the way in which children are being engaged at this point. So the system, as far as I'm concerned, was never there really to even begin with. Because I think unless we start to sort of see that, for children online, for us it's sort of like this additional, add-on. For children, it's their world. जो हमारे लिए playgrounds होते थे, schools होते थे, neighborhoods होते थे, for children that's all online there. That is their playground, that is their neighborhood, that's their friendship, social circle, everything is online. And I think until parents and teachers and sort of educators are in that online space, I think that system is going to continue to be extremely inadequate, and it's going to continue to let children down. So yeah, just to kind of start, and there's obviously a lot more that we'll add to it.
So just to put this in context, ladies and gentlemen, the walk-in complaints about online child sexual abuse or child abuse with the National Cybercrime Investigation Agency in the last year probably were 250. One would think, very doable, even with 200. Well, the main source that supplies the instances of child sexual abuse to all countries is NCMEC, is an organization, the National Center for Missing Children, based in US, and they send each and every instance of online child sexual abuse to the concerned countries. Mr. Hassan Yunus has mentioned the number, so did Umar. Till last year, it was 2 million. This year, it would be over 1 million. Over 1 million references connected with Pakistan. And to deal with those, we have just 200 people. And one man who has to go through that 1 million manually. So obviously, a very straight answer is deploying technology and AI, because you can't really deal with it otherwise. But then, AI produces deepfakes. AI produces all these images, the synthetic CSAM. So on that, my question would be first to Umar, that what is, a safe, legally defensible way to deploy AI in child protection, and what must remain human-led, and how do we kind of, navigate between the threat and the promise of AI?
Right. No, I think helpful to just clarify a little bit of the NCMEC context so that we can figure out where AI is a potential solution. Right. I think a lot of the conference so far has been about the risks of AI, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. So Pakistan gets 1 million referrals of suspected child sexual abuse every year. Right? And they land on the desk of, as Humayun Saab said, one person. His name is Imran. Arguably, he has one of the most difficult jobs in the country, which is reviewing thousands of abuse images, abuse videos every single day, right? And it's humanly not possible. So last year, out of the 1 million, Pakistan was able to open 800 referrals. Okay, that's less than 0.1% of these cases. And to give you a context of just how complex this area can get and what the potential is, these referrals come from Facebook, they come from Google, but they also come from places where, as Dr. Asha was saying, it's where children play. So there's a game called Roblox, if you're familiar with that, yeah? So Roblox is one of the largest sources of referrals for child sexual abuse material. So you have adults communicating with children on Roblox, or on PUBG, or on Snapchat, or on Instagram, and pretending to be someone else. And so you get these cases coming in. And so one of the successful cases, there were 9 FIRs registered last year out of the 1 million, but one of them was from a village outside of SWAT, right, where this was somebody that was grooming young boys, so a male accused, but he was grooming young boys, promising them mobile phones and things like that, would meet up with them, would sexually abuse them, and then would post that video on TikTok, right? And so when the National Cybercrime Investigation Agency shows up at that door, firstly, they have to negotiate the cultural context, where often the abuse of young boys in some of parts of the country is not really considered that big a deal. But even then, for that person, our law enforcement agencies have the capacity that you had a Chinese-run company, TikTok, report this to the United States across the world, for that report to then come into Pakistan's FIA, and that leading to an actual track down of one person who lives in a village in Swat, right? And we can accomplish all of this in a couple of hours, but we don't in 99.99% of cases. So we've got the technology to do it. And I think the primary challenge is now the volume that we're talking about. And that's why AI offers, I think, the best utility. So if you have 1 million cases, it would take roughly 1,000 people doing this full time to deal with figuring out what is a crime and what is not. That's the workload requirement. And we have one guy and his name is Imran. So you need 1,000. And we have Imran who also does other things, right? And so we're in the process of deploying AI now that triages these reports, so that at least Pakistan is reviewing all of them and is categorizing what is the most serious form of crime. But that's dealing with the current volume, right? And as Mayusab said, so we're just starting to see AI-generated child pornography in the world now. Right? And so there's a million cases which is not AI-generated, but the minute AI is unleashed in terms of generating child pornography, law enforcement agencies will be overwhelmed. There is no way to deal with this volume. And so we do have to find, again, AI solutions to identify what is AI-generated, and we do need AI to supplement law enforcement at this point in time.
So my next question is to Ms. Sara, that if we deploy AI in child protection, what do we do to maintain trust with families, with children, so there is fear of stigma, surveillance, a fear of AI generally, but we do see there is some promise. So how child protection would navigate that?
Okay, so firstly, of course, without AI, I think we cannot move forward, considering the capacity, considering how huge this issue is, and the capacity of our human resource and our resources. It's not possible to move on without using artificial intelligence. So when we're already using AI, by the way, at the Child Protection Bureau, because we need technology to streamline and to consolidate all the data of the children that we are dealing with, starting from their admission to their medical assessment, to their follow-ups, to their rehabilitation and all of that. So now the role of parents, of course, the parents would be apprehensive about where their child's data is going and all of that, and what is happening with that. So it's important to provide counseling to the parents, right? Number one, to bring credibility, to develop our trust in their minds that this data would be only used to benefit this issue of child abuse and your child. So I think parents need to be taken on board, and we're already doing that. And I think without that, there's no way moving forward. And I visited NECMEC myself because I went for this IBLP program. It was regarding another topic, but we visited NECMEC and they shared this data with us. And the person you're mentioning, the name, maybe this one or somebody else from FIA, and they themselves shared this information with me that the data is so much that is coming from globally that we're not enough to deal with them. So that's why it gets ignored. Yeah.
Yes, you are absolutely correct on that. And well, based on your experience at the Punjab Safe City Authority, sir, what is this promise of AI, and what are the perils, and what are the real-world limitations of AI in detection, victim identification?
Sir, as Madam has very rightly pointed out that we need AI, and there is no... Allow me to share a story. In last August, a father shared a snap of a boy with us that he is a special child and he has lost him. We made from Sialkot, Kent. I wish I could show the real snaps of the boy. The boy was hale and hearty and looked very nice. You cannot figure out that he's a special child right from seeing him. We made banners, we made announcements, whatever we could, but we were not able to find the child for next 30 days. We lost him on 30th August, and on 30th September, we received an alert from a woman in Mangla, Kent. It's around 150-60 kilometers between those two places. And she uploaded a snap for which we had no record. It was the power of AI and FR which immediately matched them in 3 seconds that he is Ali. By just seeing them, because he had lost around 10 kg, he was in tatters, you could not match these two snaps. I will share with you if you, afterwards, you can share with everybody. So that is the power of AI. That is the power of AI-related systems. I am nobody to undermine the perils related to AI, but I am basically an optimistic person, and I need to see what are the benefits of AI at this moment.
Absolutely.
Because, exactly what Madam has said and what Manyar Saab has said, that the quantum is so big, you cannot handle it by ordinary human methods. This is for sure. Because the challenges created by AI and large digitalization are to be responded in that way. You cannot respond, it differently from your usual methods. So, as a first step, we have created AI agents for our traffic violations. So, in a whole day, there you can have like 5,000 traffic violations by manual or officers, by physical officers, and that AI agent can do the job of 10 people in 1 hour. So we are now trying to, we are trying to get the NECMEC data which has not been opened by anybody, and it's redundant data. We have offered, like, just give that data to us. We will put multiple AI agents on them, and then we will get across the first report that which are the real ones which needs to be, processed further or in any way. So I think that at this moment, I'm very cautious about the perils of AI. We are not undermining them, but I think at this moment in our society we have more benefits of going on AI rather than thinking about more of the perils and being very cautious, because we have an overall very conservative approach of doing things, and once we fear something we don't do it. So I think we need to do that, and we were all predicting, everybody who was working in AI, that there will be a time that it will be an AI sponsored cyber attacks. So you have read it last week that it has all started, but again it has to be responded by an AI related defense system. So I think we have a huge benefit of taking AI at this moment, while taking all possible measures of
optimistic voices in a dark night. Dr. Asha, the psychological risks of AI surveillance of children's online lives and their activities.
Yeah. Okay. So before that, if I could just take a minute and also talk about how AI can also, I think, support children. Since we're talking about that, I think we all know the perils of it. We all know how far it can go and to what extent it can contribute to sexual abuse, including hybrid forms of it. I just wanted to say, I think one of the things that we haven't yet touched on, of course, is the trauma. The traumatic effects of sexual abuse, and particularly online child sexual abuse, which are sort of, perhaps 10 times of what they might be physically, simply because once something is online, it stays there, right? We know about digital footprints, and we know that the ongoing trauma of that can be tremendous, because it's not something, often as psychologists we work with victim survivors and we talk about recovery. Ek cheez ho gayi, now how do we move on? But how do we move on from something that's still there and that's continued to, going to continue to be there, and we don't know where it's going to go? So I think uska jo ek trauma hai. One of the problems I think is, and we were talking about this earlier, कि psychologists to mil jate hain, right? Every university is sort of, at the moment, psychology is a subject. You'll get a psychologist that's working with sort of various departments. But the sort of training in trauma-informed practice is something that is simply not taught in Pakistan. And we know that even with the best universities, that approach to sort of dealing with trauma from a particular perspective, it's something that's not there. And there I see an opportunity. I feel AI, there are a lot of people, and I think in one of the panels we were talking about that, about how, a lot of people even sort of use ChatGPT as a, support mechanism. And it can be very helpful, but it can also be extremely dangerous. But what if we were to use that system and actually develop some sort of positive, supportive messages to be used by departments? Because one of the things that we see with victims of sort of online sexual abuse is the kind of messaging they're getting from their families, from the society, from the school, are extremely negative and disempowering. So what if we were to use AI and actually get those messages across in that first step, as you said, of the justice system, where there are actually victims who are coming forward, or families who are being coming forward or being identified, and AI was to actually provide the right kind of messages that are trauma-informed, that are empowering. I think there's a huge opportunity in there to sort of work with a group of mental health professionals and to actually come up with a system where we don't have enough psychologists who are trained. And so why is it something that we can't do? Just coming to your question around the risks of surveillance, I think that's one of the things. Yes, AI can pick up a lot of risks. It can pick up grooming. It can pick up sort of words and language that are abusive and that are inappropriate. But what it also does is it also sort of, there's a lot of sort of control that can occur as a result of it, which is extremely dangerous. Children and young people today are also reaching out through AI for a lot of support around issues that they cannot otherwise talk about. And I think that there is a real risk when we use AI as surveillance, because I think a lot of those opportunities would be lost in that process. So there's a thin line always, and I think we generally भी हम society में बहुत करते हैं, we conflate protection with control. कि हम तो protect कर रहे हैं तो इसलिए हम इस चीज़ को control कर रहे हैं, phones को confiscate कर लिया, that kind of thing often happens in schools and in homes. And so we're taking very real opportunities for children to engage and actually learn and get support. And I think that's one of the biggest risks, that if parents or schools were to start imposing that kind of control around AI with children, I think a lot of opportunities for learning, for support, for engagement on issues around mental health in particular, would be lost in that process. A lot of marginalized groups, a lot of minority groups would also in this process become, I think, further marginalized if there was control. So I think those are real risks. I don't think that that's the solution unless we're able to kind of filter somehow, because there are also a lot of mistakes that are made. There's a lot of material that's picked up that's not actually abusive. So until we're able to perfect AI to that extent, I think there are a lot of risks when it comes to surveillance.
Right, thank you. And we have exactly 13 minutes and 22 seconds. We'll take the questions at the end. In fact, we'll try to take the questions at the end, but I have a very important question, the final question for all our panelists. We've looked at the landscape, how it looks like. There are gaps in, while the law is a bit decent, there are gaps in its implementation, there are problems of jurisdiction, there's definitely a big problem of capability and capacity in various organizations who deal with this. So imagine that we have 1 year. What one policy reform doable would you suggest to make amends in the situation or to improve this? Start with Umar first.
Right, so I think one distinction that we need to do away with now is distinguishing child abuse and online child abuse as somehow two different things, right? So we do need a cohesive policy around children, but which treats all forms of abuse, whether online or offline, in the same way. And that will help us align our law enforcement response, our protection response, our education response, all of it around one crime type, which is child abuse, rather than whether it's been done online or offline. But that would be one thing that I would like to see.
Coming to Ma'am Sara, single most important step in your view to ensure real child rehabilitation?
Right. So in my view, the most important step would be that a file which cannot close until the child, the victim, has been rehabilitated. Because what happens normally is that, intervention has taken place, child rescued, the file is closed. No. Until a child is back and reintegrated back into the society, rehabilitated, the file should remain open. And I would like to mention a very, very big milestone taken by the Punjab government last month, which is the approval of the first ever child protection policy of Pakistan. So this is the first policy passed by the Punjab cabinet, thanks to the Chief Minister Punjab, and this integrates all stakeholders working for children, whether it's safe cities, whether it's law department, police department, education department, all of that. And you will soon see its implementation also, inshallah.
Ahsan Saab, we know you guys can really upscale technologies, but which technologies would you like to really upscale to make this look promising, the child protection?
So you have amended the question for me. For all of it,
you can go on and answer. You can go on and answer the previous question, sir.
So I'm your junior colleague. I will narrate it in my way.
Please do.
First of all, allow me to share that within this week or next 10 days, we are launching a Safe City board for all child abuse issues, and it will be excellent. Because now we have conducted a survey among good schools, and they all have the one question: will you tell our parents? So that bot will have the logo, I won't tell your parents. You need to share the problem. There will be a monitoring mechanism behind the thing. If there is something which is very glaring, where it is more than advice, we will intervene. But we are, because Gen Z is too inclusive, not exclusive. So they don't like to share a lot with people, and more like as Madam has said that they like to chat with the chat bots and chat GPT. So taking cue from them. So let's put our children on the board to share anything they want. So first of all this, and what I will like to address this in 1 year, I think that federal government needs to address this problem in a way that NCCI should see for level 2 or level 3 sort of crimes related to child abuse or online thing and the cyber crimes. The level 1 or level 2 should be about women or child abuse or ordinary fraud. I think this jurisdiction should be delegated or shared with the provinces as well. That's most important. Thank you.
Dr.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I think what I would like to see is a truly preventative and trauma-informed national level a campaign. I think it's so frustrating the way I think psychosocial, mental health, all of these terms are used, counseling here, mental health here, psychologists, and to see what's actually happening, with all of those for actually victims and survivors and how they're not getting the support or understanding that they need. So I would really love to see sort of all of these systems there actually employ a real approach which is grounded in theory, which is grounded in research, which is grounded in the local context, which works not just on cases once they have come for crisis support, but also on prevention. So understanding child development, a true understanding of child development, of addictions, of online addictions, of the sense of sort of a lot of sort of deprivation and support that children need, and then trauma-informed support. So something that actually incorporates all of this and is with a holistic approach is what I would really like to see.
Can we have question 2 up here, please? Can we have? We can. So we do have some questions from the audience. We'll try to address them, but this one is important, I believe, that as AI becomes embedded in every platform children use, what new forms of exploitation or abuse are emerging that traditional child protection laws are not prepared to handle? Umar, you go first, and then Sarah.
Sure. So this is going to be an amateur response because I'm not an AI algorithm expert, but I think it's important to recognize that the current AI system is largely private sector, right? Which has a for-profit motivation. And we hear things like ChatGPT's large language model and its engagement is being tweaked to make it even more compelling as a companion, as a friend, including sort of a romantic engagement with children as young as 12 or 13 or 14. And so we don't know where that's going to go. There have been documented cases of children committing suicide because that's the advice that ChatGPT inadvertently ended up giving them. And now when you're opening this up, sort of romantic engagement with AI, it used to be the stuff of science fiction and movies, but there's risks there. And so in terms of kind of mitigating that risk, we do have to hold the private sector accountable, and that will come through good governance. But that should absolutely, one of the central themes of that should be how do you protect vulnerable groups from the potential sort of inadvertent effects of AI. Yeah.
How do these challenges look for child protection law, which is kind of course, what do you see? Some new additions, amendments?
I think Umar has covered what I also wanted to say. The same thing, I've heard about cases of people committing suicides because, the bot basically was not a person, and when they wanted to meet the person, there was nobody. So, I mean, these are really, really serious issues, and I think monitoring and governance, good governance, can solve these issues. Yeah.
Is this the next one? Yeah. So this is basically for Mr. Hassan Yunus, but students age 11 and above get harassed by some Instagram groups called Confessions. What collective efforts will be made by Punjab government, police and Safe City? Let me just add a little bit to this at the very beginning, that this right now is the mandate of the federal government and the National Cybercrime Investigation Agency, who do try to work around these, but we have already spoken about their capacity. They have very few people and there are lots of problems around that. They are not even able to deal with the reports that they get, and this area involves them going into, you know, the web and investigating what is going on. Over to you, sir.
You know, the answer of the question lies in the question. What collective efforts will be made? They have not asked what you have done so far, so that gives us a good chance of starting. I think fundamentally the problem lies in reporting. If you report us anything, only then we act. This is how the traditional Sarkari method works. But since I have learned it this day, because we have a good team of AI experts, software experts, so I will try to refer them and see what we can do in this regard. At least I can generate an awareness campaign, or I can generate something or some guidelines for children of these ages not to go for this. And then we can also go to a PTA or a NCCI to block this report this sites as well. So yes, there are methods of doing it. So I think the basic start is that we do not have those good platforms where these children ages are reporting these things. So the missing of that platform is, I think, the biggest problem. That's why we have said that we have a virtual center for child safety. You can plan, you can say anything to us, we will listen, and we will try whatever we can.
Would you like to add something on safe reporting lines?
No, I just wanted to add, I mean, this is not an answer really, but just a comment. It just reminded me, I think, you know, this page, confessions that you've talked about, and many other pages as well. I think it's a real tragedy in many ways that we have come to this point, whether it comes to online, but particularly to online, but to all forms of child sexual abuse, where children are more afraid to report out of fear of their own families than the offenders. And how did we get to that? Where you're more afraid that my parents ko pata na chal jaye. So, you know, even if something is online, it's such a tricky situation. You can't just go to a house and say, aapke bacche ke saath ye ho raha hai, or this is what's happening, because the parents in many ways are actually more dangerous for the child, and or very often that's how it's perceived. And so a lot of cases are not reported because children are terrified of what will happen at home. They don't think, my parents will be there no matter what. They're actually terrified that if my parents ko ye pata chala कि मेरे साथ ये हो रहा है, whether it's assault, whether it's rape, abuse of any kind online, I'm going to get into trouble, instead of parents being the safe places, or teachers or schools being the safe places. And I think that's a fundamental barrier to reporting as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And reporting, and for that, prevention, awareness raising is the most important, and bringing confidence, to the child that his identity would be kept safe and his parents or family wouldn't do anything to him or her. Yeah.
Actually, just to add, I guess, one final point to that, which is there are mechanisms that exist right now, right? So there is, the PTA runs a Take It Down portal, where if there is content, you can report it. All provinces have a child helpline that you can call and seek advice.
1121. Yeah, if you can tell
1121,
yeah.
Absolutely, right? So yeah, do try it out. I think the service is available. But the challenge again is that it's all of these things are scattered. And so how does a child find out about 1121, or how do they know how to get in touch with Safe City? And there also I think AI can play an important role. So one of the largest increases in reporting of online child abuse to the UK's National Crime Agency happened because ChatGPT, in responding, so when a child says, oh, my video, I found my photo online, what do I do? And ChatGPT in its response would tell you, you can get in touch with the National Crime Agency. And so if we can build in some of our referral mechanisms into AI that way, I think that might also help.
That actually is very important. Another, although they are, they have lots of work, but if you just go on the website of NCCIA, that also gives you an opportunity to report a crime. There's a button which you click and you can report a crime. We can go on and on talking about this. It is actually a multi-layered problem which requires, response across governments, across the society. It really needs the whole of government, the whole of society approach, and it definitely involves making unlikely coalitions in the government, in the society, and to sustain those coalitions going forward. One final takeaway, तुमने ही कोई गलती की होगी, तुम्हारी गलती है. The days of blaming children, the days of victim blaming are actually over. We could have done that in another world, in another space. Not here, not anymore. And with that, I thank you all for being on this panel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you to our guests for such an insightful conversation. We request you to vacate the hall for the next session, beginning at 3:10 p.m. In the meantime, please visit the social junction for food and live entertainment. Also check out Mindbind, the immersive art experience presented by BNU, in the Royal Grand Hall. See you at the next session. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the 19th edition of SOT Events Co-Creating Tomorrow, Humans, AI, and the Future. The SOT event series was launched by Beacon House 25 years ago to engage global communities in conversations that shape the future of schools and societies. We would like to thank our platinum sponsor, UBL, and our gold sponsor, Allied Bank, for their generous support. We also extend our appreciation to all our other sponsors. My name is Jonathan, and I'm an AI announcer for SOT Events. Please take a moment to note these important housekeeping points. Please ensure your cell phone is silent. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for session feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtags, hashtag co-creating-tomorrow and hashtag SOT2025. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the SOT app. We are delighted to have you with us today for a big conversation in collaboration with Tabard Lab, which promises to be insightful and engaging. Learning Without Schooling, Pathways for the Left Behind, brings together thought leaders, experts, and practitioners to share their unique perspectives, inspiring action and innovation. The session will last for about an hour, followed by a Q&A session. The moderator for this session is Mr. Shahab Siddiqui. Mr. Shahab Siddiqui is a communications and development strategist with over 15 years of experience in behavior change, governance reform, and human capital development. As the founding partner and director of human capital at Tabard Lab, he leads programs across education, health, and governance, combining data-driven insights with public engagement. His portfolio includes major initiatives with the FCDO, World Bank, UNICEF, UNDP, and the Gates Foundation. Previously, he headed media for the £18.1 million DFID and FCDO-funded Aleph Aylan campaign, embedding education reform into national discourse and training journalists nationwide. He continues to lead impactful projects such as Aaj Kiya Seekha and campaigns for Cambridge education, the Malala Fund, and the World Bank, focused on improving foundational learning and parental engagement. I now invite Mr. Shahab Siddiqui to join us on stage.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We'll just begin our session momentarily. We'll just give it another 1 minute for people to settle in, and then we'll begin. Yeah. Hello and welcome to the panel on Learning Without Schooling, Pathways for the Left Behind. As Jonathan mentioned, my name is Shahab Siddiqui. I'm one of the founding partners of the Tabard Lab. We're very excited to be partnering with SOT and with Beacon House for this session here at the School of Tomorrow. We're going to have a very interesting conversation, but before I lay the groundwork for the conversation, I'm going to invite my fellow panelists onto the stage. I'll begin by inviting Gulalay Khan. If you could just please make it to the stage. Gulalay Khan is a development and digital governance specialist. Her area of expertise is mostly internet governance and technology policy at LUMS, but a lot of her work also has to do with inclusion and with how to balance technology with progress in an inclusive way. So we're very happy to have her as part of the panel. I'm also going to invite Ms. Anam Sadiq. She's the co-founder and CEO of the edtech startup EdCasa. She's been recognized as one of the top women entrepreneurs in the country by the Prime Minister. She and EdCasa continue to be the shining bright light in the edtech space in Pakistan, so we're very happy to have her as part of the panel.
Thank you.
I'll also invite Mr. Abid Gill, who's a recognized voice and in the space of non-formal education. Abid Gill Saab has over 27 years of experience as an education development professional. He's worked with large development organizations on education, including UNICEF and UNESCO, and currently is in a leadership role at JICA. So it'd be great to have him and his perspective on the conversation. I think we're soon about to be joined by Mr. Haider Ali Shimsal. I'll introduce him and he'll quickly join us. He's a education technologist and is currently involved with a very impressive foundation called Teach the World Foundation that use blended edtech techniques to teach out-of-school children. So as soon as he's here, he'll join us on stage where we'll begin the conversation with Haider Saab. Haider Saab is a Fulbright scholar. He's a graduate of Harvard, and he's been a school teacher for many years and now works at Teach the World Foundation. I'm going to begin the conversation, and before I begin, I'm going to lay a bit of a groundwork on how we ended up bringing this conversation together. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here. Over the past day and a half, we've heard some amazing, inspirational conversations about the future. We've heard about AI. We've heard about all the possibilities, some good news, and some not so good news, possibilities for the future using technology and AI. One of the things that really stood out to me, at least, in all of those conversations is that when we were imagining that future, in a lot of cases, we were not thinking about all people of Pakistan. So we were thinking about a lot of Pakistanis and people who are close or similar to us and who are fortunate enough to be like us. But a lot of those conversations had, for me, missing spots of what reality is. And I thought that with the education conversation, we should be, at least when we shape the future, we should be as inclusive as we can. So I thought this was a very important conversation to be ending on at the end of day 2, that we should be having a much more open conversation on things and or about the future. And while we have the exciting parts, we should also have the less exciting conversations, the challenges that we still have to grapple with. One of those challenges is that 25.3 million children continue to be out of school. Those who are in school, World Bank data shows that more than 70% of the 10-year-olds, no matter whether they go to school, they don't go to school, they go to a public school or a private school, they continue to not meet basic literacy standards by the age of 10, so they can't read a simple text and answer questions about it. So learning whether you're in school is also poor. So we thought let's talk about those children, the ones that are getting left behind and may not have access to those things. And I'm going to begin this conversation with access and with you, Gil Saab. We have schools, amazing schools. The government system has hundreds and thousands of schools. We have massive private sector networks like the amazing work that the Beacon House does. But then access continues to be a problem for millions of children in the country. How do we shape a future where we don't leave those children behind? I know it's a broad question, but I'd love to hear how you want to get started, because I know you're an expert.
Thank you very much. This 26 million children which we were discussing, they are not in any education in the program, or they don't have any connectivity with education. So we must not forget the faces behind this 26 million. So these 26 million, before we talk about what are the possibilities and solution, we need to understand who they are, these 26 million children. So if we see the age level of these children, so the children who are already crossed their age to enter to the education program or at school, so they are around more than 18 million children from this 26 million. They are out of the age which is the eligible age for joining any school. So that make around 60% of the children in this 26 million, they are between 8 to 16 year age group. Then we can see those children, majority of them, they live in the rural areas. And recently we can see this big number also in the slums of all those cities. They are suffered from the disasters. Recently, we know it's a big part of Punjab, and in last 2020, the 2022 flood and then 2011 flood. So they are suffered from the disasters. So their education one disturbed. It's difficult for them to join the education. There are two reasons. One is definitely education infrastructure. One, it's disturbed. Then few months of disconnectivity basically leads to them both work side, because their family also lose their income and then livelihood, and then their priority shift from schools to the earning something. We all know the child labor with all the laws and all those strong commitments, still majority of the children, they are bound to work and they are in this child labor and child work areas. Then we see the children, those who are out of school, majority of them are girls, so they have no less opportunity as compared to the boys. And then these children who are with the poor health and with the disabilities, this also make a more than 6% children who are this. So if we see this the challenge, that's tell us the reasons why they are not in education. They are many. So it's not a simple there is access issue. It's basically a very complex issues. And the children who are not in the system, the exclusions, there are many reasons of this exclusions. So the design which we offer them, frankly speaking, is not inclusive enough to accommodate all these children. So our design says, we are open in the morning. If it suits to, you can join. Frankly speaking, many children, they have to work and they are not open to come to their schools in the morning. Then we have a very fixed, rigid content, fixed duration, and which also not allow the children who are overage, and which not sometimes allow the children on a different timing, different place, and different place they want to learn. So the design which is there, what we say is basically we have established the schools or constructed the schools. So if it suits to, you can jump. But million children, they are not linked with this type of solutions because they needed some different arrangement. So if we talk about, as you said, the access, it's not only just the access, its relevance is also part of this. If education is not addressing their economic, social and cultural needs, so they are again not coming to this. So our schooling model, which most of the public schools we have, is they are not ready to address their economic, social and cultural needs. So one uniformed model in Lahore, in Gwadar, in Chitral and everywhere. So this model is not basically, which is suits to them. So if we have to think about how we can bring this 26 million children, which are the potential or the future of Pakistan, so we have to think about some alternate means to bring them to the systems. So what's those alternate means are? Number one, those means should be more flexible. For example, they are not available in the morning due to any of their reasons. So we should flexible enough to accommodate the evening hours, any program which allow them to come to in the afternoon or evening according to their available time and according to their priority. Second, we should not just go for the rigid fixed content. So many children, they are interested to learn not only the education but some skills which leads towards some employability. So we should have a program which have connectivity with these, integrated with the skill and also with the basic education. And also it's not necessarily to be a fixed place to learn them. Maybe they can learn in a mosque, they can learn in any community place, they can learn in their own working place for this. So the place, the timing, the content, all need to be more flexible according to their need. So in Pakistan, we all know the declining factor of allocating budget to the education. We are, from last many years, below than 2% of our budget to the education of GDP. So that is, if we see the school in the school classroom and student ratio and teacher-student ratio, almost on the standards, like 39/1 is the teacher-student ratio, and around 41 is the classroom ratio. So with this limited budget and this every year shrinking budget, we can enhance big infrastructures for them. So beyond this infrastructure, we need two things. So for this, all these four provincial governments and also the federal ministry, they come up with a new alternate learning system in Pakistan. They call it ALP, or accelerated learning. So what's this program?
Sorry, could you repeat that? ALP?
Accelerated learning program.
Accelerated
so
learning
it's an alternate or accelerated, both this works. So what this program is basically, so this program have like four models. Number one is ALP primary. So all those children who miss their entry age to the schools and now they are over age, 8 year, 9 year, 10 to 11, 12, so they can join this ALP primary and then complete their primary education in 30 months. So this 30 months again is a maximum duration.
30
months.
Yeah.
Not 7 years to complete the primary, but in 30 months. So it's a maximum. Because we all know that if you just go outside, you find children selling something. So they have lot of prior learning. They have the mental mathematics. They know many scientific things. They also have communication skills and many things. So if we recognize their skills, their learning pace can be
And this is already happening?
This is already happening. It's already available in in Punjab, in Balochistan, KP, and also in the federal areas. So this ALP program, now many children who are over age, they opt this program, and then they are continuing their education, this 3 program. Second, because in Pakistan, 80% schools are primary. So when we reach to the elementary level, it's suddenly dropped to the 11%.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the further like just a 9% in the secondary. So this pyramid, it's basically, it's when it goes very sharp, it's not allow children to continue after the primary. So to address this slight challenge, so there is one program, we call it ALP middle. And this ALP middle is a grade 6, 7, 8. The children, they can reach to the elementary level in 18 months, who are dropped out or they've never been to schools, and then they with some basic prior knowledge they have. It was very, actually, for us was also very learning experience when we were working with the ministry on designing this program. So when we start offering this program, still many parents, it's on their place, doorstep, no fees, timing was flexible, content was flexible. Still there was many children and parents were not interested to send their children to this program. Reason was, they believe after few years spending in education, if it is not translated to some income enhancement, they are not interested.
Yeah.
So their interest is more, it should be offer them some, the program which leads towards some employability or any job opportunities.
Let me come back to you on this, but just to connect to this, I'm going to go to Anam next. And basically, this expectation that education will lead to enhanced economic opportunity, and which in turn a lot of times is kind of translates into jobs, right? So essentially, बेहतर नौकरी मिलेगी कि नहीं मिलेगी, काम होगा कि नहीं होगा, because a lot of these children, the ones that we're talking about, they're especially boys, but in many cases girls in rural settings, they are contributing to the household in some way, either economically or through chores or something. And so the expectation is that there will be a marginal utility that they're going to get by additional education. One of those aspects that a lot of research shows, and we've also witnessed, is one of the ways that parents and families see that additional value is with the experience of the child and with the quality of the learning. One of the ways that children are getting left behind isn't just about access to school, right? There are a lot of children that are getting left behind who are going to school, but the quality of the learning that they're receiving there isn't really up to the mark. So they're going to school, they're getting through the grades, the NAT survey shows that the parents are satisfied, but when you measure the child isn't up to the mark in the basic learning levels, both numeracy and literacy. So the assistance that we can make, Abid Sahab talked about how there can be alternate systems to provide support as an alternative to the school as access. You work on something that provides, even for kids who are going to school, as in like beyond school help for learning. Can you speak a bit about that and what your experience has been in Punjab?
Absolutely. So, pehle to I'm very happy to see that about like 70, 80 people have shown up on a Sunday to talk about out of school children. So, applause to you all. It's very encouraging that people care about this.
Yes, absolutely.
And I hope you all showed up to this particular session because you care about the children who are out of school. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, that's lovely. That's very heartening. Because honestly, what you asked Shahab Saab pehle ki what is the issue? I think the issue is that people don't care enough. There are millions left behind, and we are just trying to improve our own little niche area. We just leave these people behind and we just pretend like it doesn't matter. But it really, really matters, and it's growing. Jitna AI or jitni complex technology ab aa gayi hai, jitna globalization ho gaya hai, these kids will not have a future if we don't teach them to read and write. And I'm sorry I'm doing a bit of a tangent on this, but I was very happy to see so many and young people show up. So I want to share a little bit of my story of how I started my company. So I'm an educator. Piछले 18 साल से I've been working in education. I've worked with World Bank. I was working on education reform, thinking कि मैं कोई कुछ कर पाऊंगी, कुछ बड़ा change हो जाएगा. But actually what I saw was that जैसे आबिद साहब ने कहा कि बहुत localized solution चाहिए. We need to move faster. We need to experiment. Unfortunately वो हो नहीं रहा था. So then at that point I felt that either I can leave the country. I had a scholarship to go abroad and study. So either I leave the country and then just be there, or I can do something about this. And that's where the idea of my company at CASA was born. I said, no, I'm going to take it a try. I'm going to see कि अगर मुझसे कुछ 100 बच्चों की life में भी improvement आती है, then I feel like my purpose would have been achieved. So for any of you who are interested in this, that means आपके अंदर teaching का एक sense है, commitment है, and we need people like that on field. So at CASA basically is an online learning platform. We have about 3 solutions that we offer. So pehla is B2C. Students who have mobile phones and data can access about 8,000, 10,000 videos. They go through questions. There are about 600,000 users on our app who are doing that. But through the process, we realized that digital divide hai. There's a lot of kids who don't have access to smartphones, who don't have access to the internet. So we started working with schools, जैसे government schools हैं. उधर हमने literacy, numeracy पे specifically focus करके पढ़ाना शुरू किया through live online classes as well as offline models. And LUMS did a fantastic research which showed that 250% increase in learning outcomes when you are using these kind of services. And the third model is we've also taken over government schools. There's a lot of momentum around privatization. So we're one of the companies. Right now we're running about 50 government schools. So ये 3 verticals हैं. And the thing is that one after the other it came. Because जब आप लोग जाते हैं local गाँव में जाते हैं आप देखते हैं challenge क्या है. मैं आपको बताऊँ when we teach in Okada, the timetable is completely different. Yani even the way we test in Okada is very different than the cycle we follow in Sahiwal. And the reason is कि बच्चा वहाँ पे आलू की फसल काश्त कर रहा है, वहाँ पे गंदम की फसल काश्त कर रहा है. So we can't follow this extreme regimented, very centralized model कि exam इस वक्त होगा और इस तरह पढ़ाई होगी, etc. etc. As much as we want to have that ease and facilities to do that, because it's much easier to do that rather than to constantly be pivoting. But that is the requirement. So the solution has to be very, very localized. और जैसे आपने बात की on quality. So sure, 28 million children जो alhamdulillah पिछले 6 महीने में 500,000 कम हो गए हैं, which is great, with the privatization, etc. मगर ये बच्चे जा रहे हैं 70% को vowels नहीं आते, English reading नहीं आती, right? Now we're talking again in the context of knowledge-based economy. That's very problematic. Now I have hired over 100 teachers right now. We have 120 teachers. One test that I do, I ask them A, B, C, D की sounds निकालें. A की sound क्या है, B की sound क्या है. Believe you me, 90% of the teachers don't know the sound के C की क है, D की ड है, right? And I don't blame them. They're not taught as well. Teaching is not a profession that people's is the first choice. Whoever sort of feels कि कुछ और नहीं करने को मिल रहा तो चलो teach कर लेते. We haven't made it into a role model which a teacher actually is, and neither have we equipped them with training or skills required. So in the absence of a good teacher who's not only qualified but is empathetic, is understanding of the student's need, so solutions like ours come to the forefront. So when we started at CASA, we sat down with 800 students, said why is this gap there? Especially intermediate metric, people are spending a lot to get to that point, and even then, supply rate is about 40%. That's mad. 40% बच्चे जो metric exams sin में दे रहे हैं fail हो रहे हैं. That's a really broken system. And then they go again back to the tuition. It's really hectic. So we asked the students, what do you want? And most of them said, we want a teacher who's empathetic, who's not going to scold us for asking a question. So we built the app keeping in mind the student needs encouragement, they need practice, And that's how we believe कि जितना वो practice कर रहे हैं, जिस तरह वो learn कर रहे हैं, उससे वो quality का gap fill हो रहा है. Now, having said that, I'm not saying technology is a replacement for school. As I mentioned, a lot of what we do is augmenting the school. मगर unfortunately हमारी कुछ locations ऐसी हैं, जैसे आबिद साहब ने mention किया, girls don't have girls schools to go to, or their cultural constraints. There's documentation issues now that kids who don't have Bayforms or birth certificates can't attend school, even a government school. There is IDPs, there are people who are dislocated. You have to cater very localized solutions for that. And that's where technology can move really fast. We work with different organizations. We give these students very tailored content, and the dissemination practice is according to their context as well. जहाँ पे internet है वहाँ internet leverage करते हैं, जहाँ पर teacher अच्छी है उसको कैसे leverage करना है, afternoon shifts करने हैं, क्या करना है. But then the private sector can have this kind of speed of execution, which is why I hope that the people in the audience get motivated and think about how they can contribute their part. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And two things worth kind of like zeroing in on is, one, I would just say that yes, teaching has become one of those professions where unfortunately people, the way that we've trained teachers or made the profession be one where it's the profession of last resort in many places, which of course has an impact on how it is taken into school. And we can put a lot of that on the teachers themselves, but I don't think it's fair, because when you look at the working conditions and the way teachers are managed, both in I would say in the government sector, but also in the low-cost private sector, I think those incentives need to be rethought and re-looked at very closely, because nobody wants to do a bad job and show up and do a bad job. But that's worth saying that yes, while it may be a profession of last resort, people who do end up in a teaching profession, they're not set up to win as much as they could be, or as you know, as Beacon House or other teachers do set their teachers to win. So we have to be fair there as well. The other thing that you spoke about, I think is very important, is about adaptable solutions, or letting children kind of move with their schedule and be able to adapt to their things, because a lot of times with rigid systems, when we try to operate them into such a with children across so many different backgrounds, a lot of that burden is on the child to kind of make do with all the other things that they're having to deal with. Especially with Pakistan is a difficult place in most cases, right? Like, as in, we have so many masail for all of us. You know, there's climate-related issues, there's law and order-related issues, there's all of those things, there's disruptions, all of that. On top of that, there are difficulties in how those children in certain challenging settings are learning. So it's important for us to have, you know, solutions that cater to that. Talking about adaptive solutions, I noticed that I'll also recognize that Heather Shamsal Saab is here. Thank you very much for joining us.
Sheesh Mahal.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Sheesh Mahal. I do apologize. I should take more care in pronouncing people's names. Heather Ali Saab, very quickly, while you weren't here, we spoke about how access is one of those things where children who are left behind, they don't have access to schools, are not able to do either because the schools don't exist, or the schools require them to follow schedules or platforms that may not be compatible with their lives. Teach the World Foundation has a solution that is adaptive and does take in a lot of those children. We'd love to hear from you how that is. Yeah.
Hi, Hi.
I think somewhere in between, yes.
Hi, I'm Heather Sheesh Mahal. I don't need a microphone because I'm a teacher, and this size room is very easy for a teacher's voice to carry. People keep insisting I use a microphone. Why do you want to deafen yourself and embarrass me? All right. Number one, the topic is pathways to left behind. I don't want to talk about, I'll tell you who I am right now professionally. I am the Director of Learning and Academics at Teach the World Foundation, which has 4 Harvard graduates, MIT grads, including our founders Shafiq Khan and Imran Saeed. We have 3 models of our own. I'm sure everybody on stage has their own models, because we need lots of solutions and models. Imran Zaheer from Junior Jinnah Trust says, in Pakistan, we need bus, motorcycle, van, car, truck, cycle, everything. So we are not disputing your models. We are not. And at Teach the World Foundation, we have a digital micro-school model, a smartphone model, and an in-school model. But we are not telling everybody you have to follow our models. You can decide yourself which is most effective for your area. Okay? The thing is that enough talking has been done, enough papers have been published, enough TikToks have been released where people are not paying attention to said TikToks when they should be.
Well, when they're educational TikToks with 3 billion views, you know you're making a difference.
Oh, yes, you are. Yes, you are. But there's 10 billion people in the world today, out of which 2 billion are functionally illiterate, out of which 270 million or 280 million are out of school, out of which 10% of the population problem is in Pakistan, between 25.3 to 28 million, depending on who.
Or how you count. Or how you count, yes. Yes.
The statistics themselves, the models are unimportant. What is important is the projections. The projections right now in 2010 was how many million? Abid Gilsa, 8-10 million. And then where is it today? And where is it going by 2030? And where is it going by 2035? 50 million out of school children by 2035. They're going to rob you. That's what they're going to do. They're going to break down the whole system. The whole government. They don't have any stake in it. Oh, I don't think. Why would they follow any of our rules when we have 50 million illiterate? So, let's get to the topic. Pretty simple. I know the NGOs, I know the working groups. Most people, I know them more than they know me. But the point is, without Qasim Kasuri, without Sophia Kasuri, Nasir Kasuri, without the family, without Shahrizad, Tarar, and all the people whose names I've forgotten because I worked here once, but it was over 11 years ago. We need them. We need Dr. Mariam Chuktai, Dr. Faisal Mushtaq, Dr. Nida Hussain. We need all the old retired teachers and all the private schools. They're already talking. Yesterday I was at another event. They're already talking about making an out-of-school department in every private school. But look at it as an hourglass. At the top you have very privileged people like Deacon Hamid and BOSS, your BOSS alumni. What's happening is these people are starting from the students to teach the middle school students, and the middle class students are teaching the lower class students, and the lower class students are teaching the out of school children. It's a beautiful model, do it however you like. But the point is, action right now. Back to you.
Right. So one of the things that I think that's very important in what you just said is basically there is a lack of, everybody approaches in one way, some with the oratory skills or others with others, but all of us agree on one thing, that we've been having this conversation for a while. For years, like Abid, you and I, like our entire career has gone. Out of school children number moved from 25 million to 19 million, it's back up to 25 million. By the way, in this period, we have put in an extra 5 to 7 million children in school, but there are more children, right? And so the thing continues to be, continue to be millions and millions who are getting left behind. Being left behind in school, out of school, quality of learning, there's another aspect of being left behind, Gulalai, which is, well, we spoke about it, which is the quality of learning, but there's another aspect of being left behind, which is more social. And, you know, when we design solutions, a lot of times, even the solutions themselves can only cater to, there are those that even the solutions don't apply to, right? And I'm going to be a little, I'm just going to ask you to talk about a little bit about, I love EdTech. I've spent this entire day then talking about how the AI is going to be the golden thing that's going to either help us or destroy us. We have EdTech solutions that are in person as well, like the one that the Teach the World Foundation rolls out. But Pakistan and EdTech की जो landscape है, वो incomplete है to begin with.
Thank you, Shahab. And actually, I want to appreciate all the models who are trying to work for the different pathways that are for the left behind. Because there's so many people left behind that no amount of work can actually, match the kind of the support that they need. So kudos to all of you for that.
Coming to your question on EdTech, I'll talk more about tech today. Because sometimes, we use a word interchangeably with so many things, and it's such a buzzword now. Let's use technology, it's a cross-sectoral thing. But there are fundamental issues with technology as well, and in a country like ours especially. So there was a 2016 report, which happened like 10 years back, from digital device to digital dividends. And that, I have yet to see कि उसका कितना, like after 10 years, it's still as relevant, which talks about how despite digital adoption, there is pessimism in the global outlook to technology, not because technology is there, but in spite of it. And there is a reason. Because unless and until you use technology or EdTech or any solution where you don't have inclusion and efficiency and accountability, you're not going to be successful. And it is not going to work for everyone. So we see education and technology, pehle education was a democratic a solution. You could say that somebody who gets educated has the social mobility and will do something in life. Now, technology has made that more democratic, but there are fundamental issues with it. Number one, access. So, you cannot reach everyone because you have places in Pakistan where there is a real gap with access to technology and internet. So, EdTech solution will reach a few. You'll have community centers. You'll try very hard to have those, places, the community centers where internet can be provided and they can work. But that's going to be a very, very big issue. And before I move to one of my students at LUMS, who was, I think, an NOP student, so he comes from Gilgit. And I gave him some assignments. And Shahab, if you allow me, I want to go off track a little bit because I gave him a presentation and I asked him, just any personality in internet governance that inspires you, anything, any topic that you want to talk about. And he wrote a piece, which is bear with me because because I talk about access to technology, right? And we in classes think that everybody has equal access just because they're sitting in our classes, but that's actually not true. So let me just, उसने उर्दू में लिखा है, it's very interesting. उन्वान है, सिग्नल आ रहा है, अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम वसीम है और मैं गिलगित बल्तिस्तान से ताल्लुक़ रखने वाला एजुकेशन और इंटरनेट एक्टिविस्ट हूँ। अलबत्ता मैं एक्टिव तब होता हूँ जब लाइट होती है और नेट तब चलता है जब हवा का रुख हमारे हक में होता है। देखें, पूरी दुनिया के लोग 5G की बातें करते हैं और हम 2G के सिग्नल पकड़ने अपने घर के छत पे ऐसे पोज बनाते हैं जैसे हम योगा कर रहे हों। हमारे यहाँ मोबाइल डेटा का मतलब डेटा इस्तेमाल करना नहीं बल्कि सब्र का इम्तिहान लेना है। इस्लामाबाद में बैठे हमारे पॉलिसी सास कहते हैं हम पाकिस्तान में क्लाउड कंप्यूटिंग लाएंगे। अरे सर, हमारे यहाँ क्लाउड कंप्यूटिंग का मतलब कुछ और है। हमारे यहाँ मतलब है कि अगर आसमान पर क्लाउड आ गया तो कंप्यूटिंग ख़त्म। अब आप लोग फाइबर ऑप्टिक की बात करते हैं, हमारे यहाँ तो ऐसा लगता है कि फाइबर बिछा दी गई है लेकिन उसमें ऑप्टिक डालना हम भूल गए हैं। एक फ्री लांसर बेचारा फाइल अपलोड करके नाश्ते करना चला जाता है और बकरा ईद मना के वापस आ जाता है। खैर, देन देयर इज़ अ लिटिल पॉलिटिकल मैसेजिंग दैट आई डोंट वांट टू गो अबाउट इट। मेरी आखिरी गुजारिश, खुदारा गिलगित बल्तिस्तान को इंटरनेट दें वरना हम ट्विटर पे एहतजाज करने के लिए भी कबूतर भेजने पर मजबूर हो जाएंगे। And I think this happened last week in my class, and it really struck me because I teach at a very privileged institution, and I believe that everybody has similar access. लेकिन अब छुट्टियां आ रही हैं या वो सारा कुछ है, तो then the assignments that I give, the work that I give, he will always be left behind. So inclusion is not just people who are left behind of being excluded. Those even who are included sometimes can be excluded because of the access issue. And I also want to add one thing, Shahab, to this is that UNICEF has this very interesting conversation about second chance pathways for, kids out of school and people out of school. And I think we should be looking at this as a country. Because I don't want to dispute any model because I feel कि everybody who wants to work should work. Accelerated especially is a very, very important, combining that with skills. But there is so much innovation that you can do by indigenizing even global concepts. For example, there is this very interesting concept in Tanzania where through the second chance pathways, they were trying to teach children and these out of school children in the community centers, and they also brought in young mothers. So these young mothers are sometimes actually teenagers. They're not even they're still adolescents, right? And they need that kind of support. So I believe that the access issues, then the skills issues, aapke paas internet hona ya access hona, versus somebody sitting somewhere else is completely different. So you can, the statistics that you talk about, ke har kisi ne apna ek model banaya hua hai, you'll still never be able to this. And then there's a third level of digital divide, and I want to really want to talk to this because this is a topic of my passion. Yeah, and you must have seen that the teachers in this panel are quite passionate, by the way. Yeah. So, I think that is required at a certain point. The third level is where you have access and skills, people like all of us, but we are still deprived of opportunity either because of our background, of our gender, or of where we live. So, we need to also look at that. And a lot of people do not study the third level digital divide. Please do, because it is a very relevant thing for a lot of people like us. So, Shahab, your question on how do you scaffold all this through, for example, policy, people, and I would say platforms. So we have platforms, we have edtech platforms, yes, really big ones. How do we, and wo kitne logo ko kar lenge? That's the, so the scaling is required is something that you need, and for that you need a policy. So, you can have private sector do it, but you still need to collaborate with so many different policy angles. So, this is something that I really want to point out, because in the last few days we have seen so much fear and pessimism around technology, which can be because, we don't know what it's going to bring us for the next 100 years or 20 years or 10 years. But I see there's a lot of opportunity if 100%. We are able to just grab it now and work together, because collaboration is key. You cannot really be, silofied and just saying, the policy karni padegi, implementation is key then, and that's where I feel I should stop now.
Thank you so much. And I see you being you have a point to make.
Yeah, I have some disagreements.
Please come in.
I have some disagreements.
So please go ahead.
I don't disagree with what the speaker is saying. I disagree with the impact outcomes and what is needed from what you have said. So you have not said it wrong on the digital divide. Sam Wilson from the Foundational Literacy Hub, which the government, congratulations to our government, it's installing a new NFE department, a whole brand new department, but it's not closing any of the 5 other departments that are supposed to do the same job.
Yeah.
So policy.
So, yeah.
Thank you, government of Pakistan. Now, next thing is that why do we have this digital divide? Okay? जिन लोगों को इंटरनेट नहीं मिला है उनको AI का क्या पता? What do they know what is AI? They don't even have the internet. You see, the lies are when they tell you how many million subscribers there are of smartphone when you go to the PTA website, and they tell you how many so many users. But the fact of the matter is, we go to those areas, and it turns out our areas are not even the last mile areas. I'll comment on that. The internet there is choked. So while you're saying there is internet, there is actually na hone ke kabil internet. And what is the government doing? Let's bash the government, since we are in a private school setting today. Government is making online LMS systems that are 25 years old technology. आज से 20-25 साल पहले हम लोग इनके साथ खेलते थे online LMS. And you go to the universities, they are still talking online LMS. But there are offline solutions available, which is what Teach the World Foundation does. Yes. I'm wrapping in 10 seconds. The trick is to use universal design for learning, which does not require narrative or language, and you don't have the teachers, you don't have the schools, so bring in digital. The problem is people think digital is one thing. Digital is not one thing. It's like saying Islam is one thing. It's not one thing. It means different things to different people. Technology means different things. There are different kinds of technologies. Do you think the government knows what kinds of different technologies are there?
Sometimes we actually undermine the government a lot, but because you would I'm sure you work with a lot of somebody. No, but I actually work very closely with some people in like some departments in the government, and I see that there is an eagerness to learn, and there is an eagerness to learn from experts. You know, people who are running these community systems.
With you. I take back my comments and apologize duly.
No, I'm saying that yes, the government needs to do more all the time, because for scalability you will need the government. But saying that they don't know things, even if they don't know, there is a lot of information that comes from people like you. You know, people like us who can contribute. And there is a very thorough consultative process that we, of course, follow through for every policy implementation. But yes, where you're right is that what have we achieved of all what you have said? What are the few things that we now need to do for these out-of-school children? Because at the end of the day, aapne kaha 50 million young hai, but in 2050 we'll have more 100 million more people in the economy doing what? It's something that we need to...
The thing that I want to kind of come to, I want to bring the conversation back a little bit more towards the learning part, right? Yeah. Because I think that we want to look beyond schools. We want to look at all these solutions. We've spoken about how the rails on which this new system will need to run, they're not ideal and they're not universal, and so more needs to be done there, and we've spoken about that. But coming back to the learning part, and before we move on to questions, and as I go through these questions, I would ask the audience, and there are people around the room, if you can point them out, and if you give them your questions, they'll come to us, and we'll take some questions as well. So one of the things जो learning का हिस्सा है ना आप सब is basically, like you said with parents, when we use terms like non-formal education, we use terms like ed tech, या beyond schools learning, या outside school learning, right? एक जो perception that we have is कि it's not serious learning. It's not serious learning. Like school में serious learning होती है, ये second grade है, या इसका सनद होगी कि नहीं होगी, exactly, या ये compromised learning है, ठीक है? तो how do you address that? That's the first question, and I'll come to you with the same question, because it's both aspects. But the second thing connected, and I would love for you to answer that as well, is the sanad wala part, the certificate wala part, right? How do you get these children to get closer to a more formal line of thinking, right? Because employability की बात है, हमने jobs की बात की, employability की बात है, ugly transition into a formal aspect, that be possible. Ji, Abid sir.
Thank you. Definitely the impression which we have for any efforts which are out of the school which is going on, maybe we feel there is a less seriousness or there is a less sort of a recognition of those programs. So this was the area which was basically need to work. Now in the world, the people are talking about the non-formalization of the formal education. So all those flexibility which we need to bring into the system at same time must have some structure and system. So it's a proper recognized education. So the program which I introduced earlier, like ALP Primary or ALP Middle, and now a very interesting program is started, ALP Middle Tech, which is a combination of basic education and skill. So they will have a doer certification when they complete their grade 8 level education. They can also take one vocational skills, and then there is a window to continue vertically to further learn their vocational side or maybe the education side, or they can go, if the age appropriate, they can go for employability and those things. So for this, what we need to do is basically, because if the children are the millions and we are talking about the flexibility, doorstep, these alternate programs, so all those programs come some the parameters. So some basic quality standards must be followed those programs. So I'll just quote one or two example, a very interesting example. 3 years back, there was one comparative study between children in ALP classes and the children in the FD schools. This was conducted by one of the government organizations. So interestingly, the children who are in ALP classes, they were performed better than the children in FDs. The reason was the pedagogy, and it was basically based on the prior learning, and then it was not based on जैसे हम रट्टा लगा के सिखाते उस तरह से नहीं था. To make this as a proper system, so all the ingredients which are required to make a systems are there. There is a policy, non-formal education policy in Punjab, Sindh, Balochistan, KP is under the process, and at federal level, which give the somehow provisions of these type program and recognize these programs through this policy support. Then there is a curriculum which is accelerated, but same time equivalent curriculum at primary level, middle and middle tech, and also for the literacy level. So these curriculums are almost the equal having a weightage by the PCTB approved or by the National Curriculum Councils or in Sindh, Dakar or those organizations. So then they have the textbooks, training system, and the last very important area is basically assessment and certification. So any child who learn from Teach the World or any platform, digital platform, or they learn at their home in the community schools, they have a now opportunity to appear in those assessment process, and they can earn a certificate which is recognized and allow them to go continue their education. Earlier, all these type of efforts was not basically needs. Okay, in one non-formal schools, children spend a few years not resulting into any sort of a proper certificate, which was barrier again to continue their education or go to the vocational side. I'll just quote 89% children from the formal education in last 3 years, they get this, reach to the completion level, they achieve the certificate, and the majority of them, they continue their education. So this is basically, we are not talking about just the, because many people feel education without schooling is not happening. But not, this is not the time of just imagine education with the school. It's basically learning is happening anywhere, but that learning must be recognized and leads toward the further continuity and earning their education.
So, but one last thing before I move on, just one thing it's important for me. So, can you give us some numbers in terms of, you said 89%, but like how many children over the past 3 years have gone through the system and have transitioned to a more formal education?
Yeah, if we see the number, because number is very important when we say the out-of-school children. Because the out-of-school children word, it looks like we are blaming them. 100%. It's our fault, and we 100%. Must have the basically we must recognize this as basically this is not their problem. It's our failure basically. So if we see the previous report of 23-24 published by the Pakistan Institute of Education, so there is 1.2 million children in this non-formal education and ALP program. So with this potential, it is just a few years back it was started, and then we're able to reach 1.2 million. And then the transition rate is basically there are 3 indicators. One is completion, then transition, or then we also call the mainstreaming. So if we include the transition and mainstreaming together, so that is very encouraging. It's 76% children, they are transit from the level they have completed from the non-formal education. Some of them, they goes to the formal education. Many of them, they not choose formal education, but they choose the TVET side.
A vocation.
Or vocational side. Yeah. So, but this certificate was accepted in any TVET institute, so they can have opportunity to further build and to further go this.
Aved Saab, can I make a quick comment, because I know there's another speaker who's going to speak. Just a quick comment. A lot of information was said, maybe not a lot was received. But they've done a lot of work, and even so the 1.2 million they are claiming now that they have on their system, there's a lot of people not in the system because this is Pakistan. You understand Pakistan. We don't follow all of the rules. We have hidden black, this, that. For example, sorry to say that my organization has yet to put up our numbers on their system. So it's not even counted. Yeah. So there are people who are doing the work which are not counted. So if he's saying 1.2 million, it's probably more than that. 100%. It's just that everyone hasn't gotten aligned on one boat to put all the statistics in one place on the work they're doing.
So thank you for that. And I want to come back to the earlier question, but I want to add something to this.
I can go right at the end as well, that's fine.
No, but I do need you to come in here because this is important, right? Right. So we talked about certifications and we talked about accreditations, yes. But one of the words that was used within it is assessment. Yes. So one of the things that we've seen is even with children in school, and I want to make sure that this conversation doesn't just become about children who are being left behind because they're not in formal schools. Because there's a learning being left behind as well. Children who are going to formal schools but are not learning at the levels that they should be learning, and so they end up thinking that they know because their parents think that they know because they're going through the grades, but they're being left behind because they're not receiving the quality. So I just want to make sure that we're talking about the left behind the right way. One of the things that I want to talk about is assessment. Children and systems are giving the feedback to parents, basically saying कि बच्चे को आता है. अगर 5वीं के बच्चे से पूछें कि वालिदैन से पूछें कि आपके ख्याल में आपके बच्चे को क्या आता है, तो वो कहेगा कि 4th तक का तो आता होगा ना, तभी उन्होंने उसको 5वीं में उसका दाखिला किया है, राइट? सो विद इन द सिस्टम व्हाट वी आर सीइंग इज कि द क्वालिटी ऑफ लर्निंग इज नॉट बीइंग मेजर्ड properly, and so there's a miscommunication about how assessment systems are talking about. Can you speak a bit about how that is manifesting and can be addressed going forward so that less children are being left behind?
I think that's one of the strengths of the informal sector more than the formal sector, because the formal sector, जैसे आपने कहा कि it's taken more seriously. पेरेंट्स को लगता है कि बच्चा फॉर्मल स्कूल में जा रहा है तो उसकी लर्निंग ज़्यादा बेहतर है, बट आई थिंक पेरेंट को जहाँ पे अपने बच्चे के अंदर इम्प्रूवमेंट नज़र आती है वो उसको डबल डाउन करते हैं, स्पेशली नाउ विद Gen Z and there's so many different pathways to learning, which is what we're discussing today. So I believe कि opinions तो अपनी जगह है, मगर data और logic speaks for itself, and that's where tech can take a lead, because हमें real time data आ रहा होता है. Any student who's doing a question, we start with the baseline, and then over the course of his journey, you're tracking how that student is doing, and you can show not just relative to that child's school, but in that district how he's doing. Because होता ये है कि जब तक बच्चे metric तक पहुँचते हैं, they're really shocked that they have had a supply. उनको idea नहीं है because they're getting A's in their schools. But with tech interventions, जहाँ पे उनको real time assessment और real time evaluations मिल रही होती हैं, that's a value add that the system can do. So Shahab, I hope that answers the question. I've kept it short because I know we have just like 5 minutes.
No, but I would love you to, if you would want to address this question. Do you want to
Shahab, I also want to add something. When, apart from the assessments and the evaluations that you do for, like the learning that they've achieved from the curriculum that you teach them, there is also a very important part, especially for the left behind, is the life skills, right? And that's a very important one. And I think Tabad Lab is also working on a life skills framework now. We can have the best education, but if you don't have the life skills, and it can be related to the confidence, whatever. आपने थोड़ा सा बताया भी that you add something on that in the curriculum, communication, how to handle pressure, how to think critically, and especially in this current digital age, the critical thinking becomes very, very important for children and those who have technology, but they're not aware of what technology offers them or can harm them as well in some ways if they don't use it effectively. So I guess that a life skills framework along with the basic curriculum for math, Urdu, English, sciences is also a very, very important aspect. And I think those who are left behind, because confidence, communication, all these things should be there for those who are left behind as well, and not just for those who are included in our system.
So I have a question. It says traditional schooling often fails the most vulnerable. What structural barriers in our education system must be dismantled before alternative pathways can truly work? I want to take a crack at answering this very quickly. Some of it was already answered with the alternative pathways. We need scaffoldings like digital connectivity. We need cheap internet. We need access to devices for those things for tech solutions to work. Within the structural barriers, one of the structural barriers is we continue to have systems that do not adapt to the needs of the children that in the communities that they're serving. So be adaptable.
I think one major part of this is empathy. जो बच्चा पीछे रह रहा है उसके घर में भी काफ़ी issues होंगे जो वो स्कूल लेकर आ रहा है, and the teachers especially in low cost private schools या government schools already have so much burden on them कि वो एक और बच्चे की problem को solve करने में उनको training भी नहीं है, उनके पास capacity building भी नहीं है. So empathy is a huge part of why there's so many students who are, struggling with whatever it is that they're learning.
Shahab, can I add something?
My turn.
Go ahead. First you, then go ahead.
Half a minute, really close. You see, the word empathy here is being used as a catch-all word. It's being used as an umbrella word. Empathy here means left behind.
आपको ऐसे क्यों लगा? आपको ऐसे क्यों लगा? यहाँ पे catch-all phrase नहीं use हो रहा. It's data-backed. It's not opinion. It's what 800 household surveys have shown.
The speaker has spoken for themselves.
Please go ahead and we'd like to hear your answer. We'd like to hear your answer. Yes.
I know. Anyways.
Yes. Please. We'd like to hear what your opinion is.
देखिए, left behind, last mile, Teach the World Foundation. हम लोग भी सोचते थे शायद we are the last mile. We are not. There's an organization called Right to Play. It was founded by Iqbal Jatoi 20 years ago. Talk to them. They are the ones who actually go to the last mile. These are places you have to go trekking to get there.
Yes.
Okay. But I will not misquote the speaker. Apologies. Empathy is empathy. There's climate change. There's floods. 100%. There's earthquakes. There's conflicts. There's internally displaced peoples. There's refugees. There's internal migration for fishing or other sorts of things. There's a lack of buy-in from the parents because even the university graduates are not getting jobs. There are economic factors where they have to go and work. There are gender issues and cultural issues. There are inclusivity and disability issues. There is shaur and awareness and behavioral change that has to be done. And of course, we must do it all empathetically.
Yes. So the thing about all the things that you missed a bit when we discussed these challenges in the beginning. But what the question was about, and I want to kind of address this as well, systemic challenges in addition to the Pakistan challenges that we spoke about, they do exist. And systemic challenges are there because systems are large. We're about to release a report on the shortage of teachers in the government system. Let me just tell you, education departments are the largest HR department in the country. They're bigger than the military, they're massive, and they still have shortages of 100,000 teachers across the country, right?
700,000 teachers short.
Yes. So the thing about bringing those numbers in and getting those people, there are a lot of systemic barriers. Is sab ke bawajood schools are being run, children are going to school, they may not be receiving the kind of level of education that they should be receiving, but teachers are showing up to work and under very difficult, we talked about difficulty for children and all the things that you've listed, a lot of teachers are still showing up to work and running those schools and working in situations where quite frankly hum to na kaam kare un settings mein, right? नहीं मगर उनके लिए नहीं कर रहे जो उस तरह से नहीं कर रहे जिस तरह से वो बेचारे कर रहे हैं तो वो सरकारी हम बहुत आसान होता है हमारे लिए जो है ना सरकारी मुलाजमीन और टीचर्स को जो है ना वो कहना मगर वो सुबह उठकर रोज़ सुबह स्कूल जाते हैं और स्कूल के अंदर जो है वो क्लास लेते हैं उन मुश्किल सेटिंग्स में so we should have some empathy there as well. I think we're out of time and I thank all of you for... Oh, I'm so sorry, Gululai.
No, actually it has been almost answered, so I don't want to waste time. But I'm saying that probably we also need to look at the foundational issues that make children, keep children out of school. Because there was this research that we did in Karachi street children and in the 5 divisions of areas of Karachi, and most of them were either 3rd or 4th children. And when we asked them that, like in the family, so the first one or the second one had some level of education, but the 3rd or the 4th were completely on the streets, providing for the family or siblings or everything. And that is because we're also looking at a population that we cannot control and an economy that cannot feed all of them.
And there's a gendered aspect of that as well.
Yeah, so
that's
an issue that we
Abid Gil Sahab, you wanted to have the last word.
One quick, for the out-of-school children, we always expect from the government to do something. Definitely, that is their responsibility. State is responsible to provide the free and compulsory education, but same time, the issue is very huge and we cannot only expect from the government.
100%.
I'll just give one quick example. We know there is a huge number of private schools in Pakistan. It's more than 100,000 private schools there. Imagine if private school offer a classroom in the evening or afternoon for 2 hours and allocate one teacher for 2 hours to just provide accelerated learning. The children who are maybe on the same street or the children living on the colonies of that schools even. So if we think about these type of models, maybe here we can engage 5 million children.
It's already happening. It's already happening, sir. It's already happening, but more and more people need to join the bandwagon.
Yeah, but still number is, if we see, is basically, because the public-private partnership is basically, government should give money to do the public-private
Exactly.
partnership. So where basically we will contribute from our side. So we have a lot of teachers here, I think. So if we feel this is all our responsibility, we should not expect only others will do and we will not perform our role. So everyone have to play their role. Tech, they have to do their role. The government system, they have to provide their roles. And also the private sectors, they have to contribute. Why not, for next 5 years, CSR devoted to the education to address the challenge? Then we can enjoy better business and better business.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to everyone, and thank you to the audience for this being part of this important conversation. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you to our guests for a truly insightful conversation. That's all from SOT Events Edition 19. We hope you had a wonderful time and look forward to seeing you next year. Goodbye.